Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on, the slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you. Toadstool Sports Saturday, December 27th. It is the day with the most bowl games, and luckily some of the other sports don't have a ton going on here. 1-2 on the show yesterday. Kind of pissed about it. I think we should have fared better than that. The bowl game, I mean, New Mexico had chances to win that thing in regulation. They were winning the game early. They got held to a couple of field goals. Probably should have been winning by more than that early in the game. I mean, Minnesota really did not have much offense in that game at all. But they were able to get a late touchdown to take the bigger lead. New Mexico tied the game up with a 2-point conversion. Then New Mexico did have it. I believe they were on the Minnesota side of the field, and they were not quite in field goal range, and they had to punt, thinking that they were going to get a game-winning field goal opportunity, and then they lose in overtime because they get held to the field goal. And, of course, Minnesota, even though their offense is ass, of course, they get the touchdown to win the game. I'm pissed. Of course, it lands on 3 as well, so if you had played the game really early when the bowl lines first came out, you probably would have pushed on that game rather than taking a loss. I'm pissed about it. I haven't looked at the final stat sheet on that, but I know that New Mexico had more yards than Minnesota did early in the game at the point where they were losing 7-6. I mean, they had multiple scores. They just got held to field goals. I'm not happy about it. We got the win with Charlotte in the NBA, outright win with the Hornets, like wire to wire, easy win, easy cover, but also outright win. And then Portland decided to just completely lose it in the second half. Portland was looking pretty good in that game, winning, I think, at halftime, and then imploded after that. But if you look at the box score in that game, it wasn't really what it looked like. I think Portland out-rebounded. Who were they up? I don't even remember. Who did we fade in that? The Clippers? Portland out-rebounded the Clippers by, like, double digits in the game. Like, Zubac not being there was a huge deal. And usually that alone will get you a win if you win the rebounding battle substantially, but no. And a lot of it was because the Clippers hit 50% from three-point range, which is bullshit. And Portland had more field goal attempts in the game as well. And Portland also failed at the free throw line, so more free throws came. I think maybe there was a double-digit free throw disparity in the game as well on the side of the Clippers. So I don't even really think we had that game wrong. And we had Portland as a slight underdog as well. But you win the rebounding battle by that much and you have more possessions in the game, you shouldn't fucking lose outright. So I'm not happy about that either. I don't think that was the wrong handicap there. I'm pissed. Jeffrey, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. Charles, thanks for hanging out. Big dogs winning outright. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be on those. Tyson, what's up, man? Let's get into today, man. I mean, I'm not happy about yesterday. I'm not happy about this slump that we're on here. I mean, we were so hot the last few months. It's like, whatever. Like, we're still going to wind up, like, way up on the year because of how hot the last, like, few months have been. But I'm only going to have 3 plays today out of all this madness. There really aren't that many games today, but I'm skipping NBA completely. I hate the NBA board. Like, any of the teams that I really want to fade are playing against each other. I'm going to have 1 hockey play, even though it's a massive hockey board. And then I'm going to have 1 bowl that I already had identified a while ago. And it's one where I think maybe waiting will get you a slightly better number on it. And NFL, I'm actually going to throw out an NFL play. There are 2 NFL games, and I'm going to give out a play in one of them, which I didn't think was going to happen until Christmas happened. And now I think it's actually worth a play, the game tonight. So no angles. There are some, but they're like, for me, the best angles are teams that are playing against each other. So I can't do it. We do have 1 Division I college basketball game tonight on the ACC network. And it's Stanford is the ACC team involved here against in-state little brother Cal State Northridge. I mean, when I look at this game, I think the only way that I could really play this is to take the points with Northridge. I mean, an in-state little brother like this, you got to think they're going to try to get up for a game against a bigger name in the state like Stanford. I know both teams, well, actually, no, Stanford, is sitting at 10-2. And Stanford has not really been that battle-tested, so I don't think they're really as good as their record looks. For Cal State and Northridge, I mean, they're not horrible. They're on a 4-game win streak, although, of course, these teams are coming out of a little bit of a break here, and I do worry about that a little bit. You know, when teams have breaks, sometimes it just disrupts whatever momentum they had. So if they had positive momentum, sometimes that break can hurt them, but this is still one of the biggest games on Northridge, on their entire schedule. So I expect them to show up. And Stanford, I don't think the spot is good for them. And they also went into the break on a win streak. So that's kind of just negated there. But they beat Colorado. It was a nice win for them. It was a neutral location game, I believe. I think Colorado actually might have even been a slight favorite in that game, which that tells you what the odds makers really think of Stanford. They're not that great. So they got that win against a Big 12 team. Now they have Northridge here. And then 3 days from now, they actually start ACC play against Notre Dame. So I think this is kind of a sandwich spot here when a game is surrounded by 2 power conference games. So again, I could only look to take the points with Northridge here. The money looks like it is starting to kind of agree with that. Stanford is up to a 16.5-point favorite, although it's a high total of 165, so it makes taking the points a little less tempting. 67% of tickets and 71% of the cash on Northridge. So the money seems to kind of be indicating that way. I'm not going to do anything with it, though. The public probably is not going to be playing this game either. They don't even know that this game exists. Hockey, we have a massive, massive board here, and I don't love it. A lot of times teams coming out of breaks, I just don't really love the handicapping angles. And usually my main angle when teams come out of breaks is what I just said. Like, if a team went into the break really hot, the break tends to disrupt their momentum. If a team went in on a really bad note, the break tends to help them. So that's kind of the way you want to handicap these games. The Rangers are playing the Islanders. Battle of New York here. And my opinion on this is that the Rangers are not in a very good spot. I mean, they just crushed Washington before going into the Christmas break, 7-3. That's a huge win. Very satisfying win. And they do have to play Carolina and then Washington again after this. And then Florida, not only the returning champs back-to-back, but also in the Winter Classic. Is what that game is on January 2nd, so I believe it is. Although it's a night game, so am I wrong about that? No, it is. Usually the Winter Classic is in the afternoon. Very weird to see that at night, but whatever. So I think you could argue that they could overlook the Islanders here, even though it's their New York rival. The Islanders, even though they have a decent record, they always kind of play little brother to the Rangers. Although, of course, it is the Rangers technically on the road, so the Rangers are definitely a lot better on the road, as we point out time and time again. The Islanders, they did just beat New Jersey. That was a nice win for them going into the break, but that was only one win going into the break, which maybe stopped their losing momentum. They don't have anything surrounding this, so to me, the spot does set up better for the Islanders, and that's my opinion in this game would be to look towards the Islanders. We see the money kind of disagreeing with that. This game is a little bit early, by the way. It's 6 p.m. Eastern. 67% of tickets, 86% of the cash on the Rangers. And the Islanders dropped from minus 120 to minus 115. It is interesting. The odds makers are kind of telling you these teams are close to even, or the Rangers might even be a slightly better team. But in this spot, I think the spot is worse for the Rangers. It's not on my card, but I would. This one is actually one of the stronger opinions I have in the NHL today. I lean towards the Islanders. My Bruins are at Buffalo. Bruins are one of those teams that went into the break on a really bad note. They lost 4 games in a row. The last 2, 6-2 to the awful Canadiens, Ottawa and Montreal. So you got to think that this break is going to help just bust that losing momentum for the Bruins. They're starting a road trip. I talk about how when you start a road trip, you tend to be focused. It might be good to just get out of home after that ugly loss to Montreal, which, by the way, wasn't really as bad as it looked. The game was 2-2 in the third period, I'm pretty sure. So I think a lot of things do line up for the Bruins to come out with focus in this one. And meanwhile, Buffalo actually went into the break as well as possible. They won 7 games in a row, including beating the Ottawa team that just beat the Bruins in overtime. So people might take a look at that and maybe want to jump on board on the Buffalo side because of that. But I think that having that break at that time might hurt Buffalo's momentum here. So if I was going to play this game, I would lean towards the Bruins. You're actually going to get them as an underdog here, which the odds makers are basically telling you Buffalo is the better team, though, at home against the Bruins here. Buffalo getting more than home ice, down from minus 150 to minus 138, though. The Bruins are looking like a public dog, and I like to avoid public dogs. 69% of tickets, 68% of the cash on the Bruins. Although yesterday, I think both of my NBA plays were public dogs, although I didn't look at what the market looked like at night, but I just didn't think that market look was accurate at all yesterday. I don't know what was going on with the board yesterday, but I didn't think that a lot of those percentages were right at all. Anyway, I'm staying off the game. I would lean to the Bruins, though, just because I think the spot sets up a lot better for them. You're getting them at a really nice underdog price here. It is interesting that the odds makers are telling you Buffalo is the better team, though, although recency bias maybe factors in here and maybe has Buffalo maybe favored a little bit more heavily than they should be. Ottawa is facing Toronto. The Battle of Ontario. I mean, these two teams, of course, do not like each other. Ottawa just lost a 4-game win streak in their last game with a loss to Buffalo. So you could argue that'll disrupt their momentum here, but you could also argue they're going to be in a bounce back because that was a pretty ugly loss. Losing at home as a favorite to Buffalo, and they don't really have anything surrounding this game. So it looks like a focus spot to me for Ottawa, generally, I would say. For Toronto, they broke a loss streak with a win against Pittsburgh in a return home spot as well prior to the break. So you could argue the break will hurt their momentum again because they just started some new momentum. Or you could argue, well, they're just going to show up in this game because it is a big game. And beating Pittsburgh isn't necessarily that big, and that did end a loss streak for them. So generally, I think both teams are going to show up for this game. Looking at the market read, pretty strong indicators on Ottawa. Ottawa flipped from plus 100 to minus 129, although some of that might have to do with goaltender information or something like that. You don't usually see a number move that significantly like that. 63% of the tickets and 99% of the cash on Ottawa. I don't think that cash percentage is accurate, but it does seem like some of the money this morning has come in on the Ottawa side. The odds makers are kind of telling you Ottawa's the better team, lining them as a road favorite here. I'm not going to really have much of a reason to disagree with it. I'm just staying away completely. But, yeah, I won't really disagree with Ottawa there. Tampa Bay at Florida. Tampa Bay did just lose at home 5-2 to Florida not that long ago. So this is one of those possible zigzag scenarios, or, if you want to call it quick revenge, fine. But really it's more zigzag that, Tampa's going to make adjustments after that loss and show up. And by the way, that was the last game before Vasilevsky came back. So Tampa will most likely, I believe, have Vasilevsky in net here because they're on a huge break here. Tampa did win surprisingly against St. Louis going into the break. Surprising because Tampa had beaten Carolina the game before that, had the break, and then Florida upcoming. So it was basically a sandwich spot, and they won anyway. Now, maybe the break will disrupt that momentum from winning 2 games in a row, but I just see no way that Tampa's going to overlook this game. Yeah, they got to travel down to South Florida for this, but they're going to show up for it, man. It's Tampa, Florida, you know. I think Tampa might be the somewhat more motivated team here, too, because Florida's won 2 championships in a row. Florida just embarrassed them on their own ice. Florida is coming off a win over Carolina, and that's how they went into the break. They lost to St. Louis the game before that, which was a win for us because that was a Carolina sandwich. So we faded Florida in that spot. Now, I think it's actually Florida that's in the worst spot here because they just beat Carolina, and they have Washington next. They're not going to overlook Tampa Bay, but I think Tampa Bay might be just a little bit more motivated here to get that quick road reversal, revenge, if you want to call it that, for lack of a better term. Tampa did flip from plus 110 to minus 109. So the odds makers are telling you Tampa's the better team, favorite on the road in this case. Although the percentages look like they're indicating in the opposite direction, but these are so close to 50-50 that it's hard to really gauge. 52% of the tickets on Tampa, 50% of the cash on Florida. I'm not really going to buy into that very much. I would lean towards Tampa Bay in that one if I was going to play it. Washington at New Jersey. Pretty good game, actually. New Jersey now with Jack Hughes back. Washington was good for a bit. They had started playing well again, kind of like they were last year, but now they're on a slide again. They went into the break with 3 more losses in a row, including that ugly loss 7-3 to the Rangers that I mentioned a little while ago. I think this sets up as a focus spot for Washington. I mean, again, you go into the break on a losing note. That break can just disrupt your losing momentum. They're starting a little road trip here. They could be focused for that reason as well. Coming off an ugly loss, again, that sets up for a focus spot as well. So I think that the spot sets up pretty nicely for Washington. For New Jersey, they went into the break on 2 losses in a row as well, only scoring 2 goals. So I think it sets up fine for New Jersey here as well, and staying in the New Jersey, New York area here as well. They're going to show up for a game against Washington, you would have to imagine. So both teams should be in a focus spot in this one. The money is kind of indicating on the New Jersey side, even though they dropped from minus 125 to minus 115. Washington looks like a public underdog here, which, again, you usually want to fade these public dogs. 68% of tickets, 55% of the cash on them. And fading a public dog, you know, you're not only fading the public, and the public might have a misperception about the game, but it does mean that you're getting your money down on a decent team, right? If they're favored against a team that the public wants to be on. So slight lean for me to New Jersey in that one, but I don't have a strong opinion at all there. Garrett, what's up? Thanks for hanging out, man. You're doing well again. You're hitting the props, man. Props to you for that. Yeah, the Hornets, I mean, they were my only win last night, even though you could definitely argue I should have swept the 3-0. I should have had a 3-0 sweep yesterday and wound up 1-2. I'm not too happy about it, but I think my read was all right on those games yesterday. Where am I at here? Detroit at Carolina. This game, Detroit coming into this, they went into the break on a 3-game win streak, and it was a nice win streak. They beat Washington twice and beat Dallas, winning the last 2 games, both in overtime. Now they're coming off of that. You could argue maybe there's like a letdown component to this. The break could disrupt their momentum for sure and halt their winning momentum, but Detroit's not going to overlook Carolina, man. I mean, this is a huge game. Even though Detroit does play Toronto next, it's kind of a geographic rivalry, an original 6 rivalry as well, but they're not going to overlook Carolina, although they do have to travel down to Carolina for this. Now, Carolina's probably going to be in an angry mood because they went into the break on a 3-game losing streak. They lost on the road to Florida and Tampa. I mean, you can forgive those, and then the return home spot, they lost to Florida again. Wasn't the greatest spot for them. Carolina's still a really good team, and they're in a positive spot here. I think they can use this break to just kind of forget about that, break that momentum. They'll still be at home here, which sometimes, you know, the distractions are still in play there from the holidays and whatever. But if I was going to play this game, I would have to lean towards Carolina here. The money seems to say otherwise, though. Carolina dropped from minus 194 to minus 177. 65% of the tickets on them. 78% of the cash on Detroit. Again, I don't really understand that market read. I don't really agree with it. I would play Carolina or leave the game alone in that one. Although, if you're playing Carolina, you got to lay a huge price for it. So, again, you could do like a split bet on that one. Make your own -1 puck line. Whatever. But, of course, I'm recommending only playing my plays. But that's a whole different thing. I know everybody wants some action on games that they're interested in and whatever. Garrett, you want Jokic over his assists or PRA? I'm going to disagree with you on that because he's coming off like an absolute monster game. So I think they're going to have to jack the prices up on all of his stuff. I would not go over on any Jokic props after that. He's coming off a triple-double with more than 50 points. There's no way that I would play Jokic over on his props after a game like that. Under Banchero, 24.5 points. That might depend on who's playing for Orlando, because Orlando might be getting Wagner and Suggs back. So there's a lot of stuff that's up in the air about that game. I think if those guys come back, obviously that's going to eat into Banchero's scoring opportunities. If neither of those guys are back, then I worry that because Banchero's just going to have to shoulder the load if neither of those guys are back. Although, the one thing you do have going for you is Orlando, they don't necessarily really put up a ton of points, even though for some reason they're trying to be a fast-paced team this year, which seems stupid to me because the reason why they were so good the last couple of years is because they were a slow-down team that played defense. So, I don't know. Orlando also, they do not shoot a lot of threes. So, something else to kind of keep in mind there. Minnesota at Winnipeg. Interesting game here. Minnesota, they lost their hot streak, and they went to the break with an ugly loss to Nashville in overtime. But, of course, they had lost not only their win streak, but lost to Colorado the game before that. So I think it did set up kind of a hangover spot there. Now they have multiple days rest, break that losing momentum. They get to go out on the road. To me, it looks like a focus spot for Minnesota, even though they do have a potential look ahead to Vegas next. For Winnipeg, they're not going to overlook Minnesota. Winnipeg, they got Hellebuck back, although they went into the break on a bad note, losing 4 games in a row. They did lose back-to-back games in elevation, but, what can you do? You lose to Colorado by 1 goal. Definitely can excuse that. And then they had probably a hangover effect and lost again close in elevation again to Utah. They're returning home from a road trip, technically, that they started on Wednesday, December 17th, but they've been back home for a while now, but of course the holidays can kind of interfere with that and take up a lot of your time and whatever, so maybe the distraction kind of lingers, but I still think that having all this time off can disrupt this losing momentum. You got to think Winnipeg is going to show up for a game against a team that's been on fire for the most part recently, like Minnesota, so looks like a focus spot for both teams, but if that's the case, Minnesota is the better team right now. The market read is saying Minnesota. I can't exactly disagree with it. They've flipped from plus 101 to minus 114. 71% of tickets, 92% of the cash on Minnesota. So the market is kind of saying Minnesota there. Nashville at St. Louis in what might be the ugliest game of the day. Nashville is on a 3-game win streak. So again, going into the break on a win streak could be a negative, could disrupt their momentum a bit. Don't really know how much focus they're going to have on a Blues team where they were just here on December 15th and they beat the Blues 5-2, and prior to that they beat them at home 7-2. So Nashville might just overlook St. Louis, man. Although Utah is their next opponent, which isn't exactly the greatest upcoming opponent, but St. Louis, they might have some adjustments to make here. They've had some extra days off. They haven't played since Monday. They went into the break on a loss, losing 4-1. They're returning home from a road trip, but it was a quick trip just to the Floridas and then back home. Yeah, they've presumably been, going through the holidays and whatever, staying at home here, maybe a little bit of a distraction. But I think if you're going to play this game, I think you have to lean towards St. Louis in this one. The money seems to agree for the most part, although they dropped initially from minus 120 to minus 108. You're getting a nice price on St. Louis if you want them, man. A very cheap price for a home team. 56% of tickets, 65% of the cash on St. Louis. And again, I like the fact that they could make some recent adjustments to two really hideous losses to Nashville. Nashville's still not really a good team, man. So I think it's St. Louis or pass in that one. Chicago at Dallas. This is going to be the biggest line of the day. Chicago on a huge skid. They've lost 6 games in a row going into the break. But again, the break comes at a time where it might help you disrupt that momentum. They get to leave home, forget about it, go out on the road. They're going to be focused for Dallas. So it really comes down to, is Dallas so good that they can just beat Chicago anyway? Now, Dallas did lose a win streak in their last game in an overtime game to Detroit. They're coming back home here. I think the spot actually does set up a little bit better for the Blackhawks in this one. Detroit, maybe Dallas, maybe that last loss could linger a little bit, because I always talk about when you lose a win streak, sometimes it actually hangs you over rather than having a break disrupt any sort of losing momentum that you might have, because they didn't really have momentum yet. So it's really like their winning momentum is still stopped. You get Chicago at a massive dog price here. So if you want it, you might even be able to get a decent price on plus 2 goals or something like that. Dallas down from minus 345 to minus 335 on the money line. 97% of tickets, 100% of the cash on them. Obviously, I don't buy that, but I think if you're going to play the game, taking Chicago at a huge dog price would be the lean in that one. Anaheim at LA in the Battle of LA, essentially here. LA technically at home. LA not really very good at home this year, as I keep pointing out. Anaheim went into the break on a pretty ugly loss at home to Seattle. Now they're just going down the street to face LA. You got to think they're going to get up for the game. I think probably both teams will, though. The Kings went into the break on 2 straight losses, pretty ugly ones at home to Columbus and Seattle. Columbus one was in a return home spot, which I think that one might have been a win for us on the show as well. I think they're going to show up too. They do have a potential look ahead to Colorado, but Anaheim's been playing decent this year. I don't think LA is going to overlook Anaheim. So then it kind of comes down to who's the better team here, really. And the odds makers are actually surprisingly telling you LA is. So it is very interesting to see the team with the worst record, which is LA. And I know the team that's not very good at home being a more than a home ice favorite here. They're down from minus 145 to minus 140, but the odds makers are telling you something by lining LA as a favorite like that. It almost looks too easy to play Anaheim as a dog here with the better record. Anaheim, 52% of the tickets on them, 66% of the cash on the LA Kings. So the money is saying the Kings. I don't really have much of a reason to disagree, so take that for what it's worth. Garrett, Chargers Texans is a very difficult handicap. So obviously that is not the NFL game that I'm playing tonight. Other than I think the total is easier to figure out than the side in that game. But I'll talk about it because I think there are a lot of conflicting factors as far as the side is concerned. I'm really struggling with that game, and of course I have pick'em pools that I have to deal with where I'm picking every single game. I also have my contest entry where I'm only picking my best 5 every week. So that game is obviously not going to be in that, but I have to pick it in my pools where you pick every game, which I'm doing well in, but I'm 21 games above 500 right now on the season. Edmonton at Calgary in the Battle of Alberta here. You got to figure both teams are probably going to show up in this one, although Calgary probably has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they're the lesser of the two teams. They did just lose to Edmonton in Edmonton 5-1 right before the break. So this is basically a zigzag spot where maybe Calgary comes out and they make adjustments here after an ugly 5-1 loss. Maybe Edmonton just kind of looks past Calgary this time. They have Winnipeg next, which isn't exactly cause for a look ahead right now, but still, I think you got to kind of lean towards Calgary here. I mean, and then, of course, both teams are coming out of the break, having played each other going into the break, where, of course, Calgary was on the losing side of it. So, again, I think the handicap here really is that it's a zigzag. I think Calgary, they're the team that has the adjustments to make, the stuff to fix. If you're Edmonton, everything works, so you have not a whole lot to fix here. Edmonton is up from minus 120 to minus 131. No percentages yet really on this, but you get Calgary as a home dog here. I mean, that would be the way that I would lean in that game. It almost looks too easy to play Edmonton at what is not really that big of a price. So next game up is my play in hockey. Best bets, I guess. We're going to go right back to the team that abused us in the last game. I haven't played them much this year, so hopefully they do us better this time. We're going to play the San Jose Sharks again. Money line, plus 120 was the best number I saw out there. You can get them at an all right underdog price here, so that's my recommendation here. San Jose, they're coming into this of an ugly loss, which unfortunately was a loss on the show against Vegas. I thought they caught Vegas in a bad spot, and man, San Jose got run over in that game, 7-2. I think you're going to see a much better effort from them here. Presumably they went home after that, celebrated, Christmas. Now they're going out on the road, so it's technically the start of a road trip, I would say. I talk about that. Teams usually are focused to start the road trip. They're usually focused off an ugly loss. And they're usually focused if they have a break that disrupts the losing streak. And San Jose falls into all three of those categories. They went into that break on a 3-game losing streak. So I like all of that. Looks like a focus spot for San Jose to me. For Vancouver, I know it looks maybe kind of easy to take San Jose because they actually have kind of the better record and they're not really that good. Neither of these teams are that good, though. And Vancouver, if you look at how this sets up for them, this is an awful spot for Vancouver, man. This is the biggest road trip return spot on the board today. They started a road trip on December 14th. The road trip went all the way through Monday, December 22nd, and then, of course, they came home. And presumably, assuming they do Christmas in Canada, presumably they're celebrating Christmas. So that can be an added distraction. I just talk about generally a return home spot when you've been away for so long. You got stuff to do at home, but couple that with celebrating the holidays and whatever, this could be a major distraction spot where they just don't pay much attention here to a mediocre San Jose team. And then they go back out on the road to face Seattle on Monday for a single game, though, on the road. But it's one of these weird single-game homestands, too, which I usually like to fade teams in that spot. And on top of all that, going into the break, Vancouver had lost a 4-game win streak with a loss to Philadelphia. So I talk about that, too. That can disrupt your momentum and hang you over when you lose a win streak. So I like how it sets up. We're going to take San Jose on the money line here. The market seems to agree. Vancouver dropped from minus 150 to minus 138 already. So, getting San Jose at any somewhat decent underdog price, I think, is the right approach here. 71% of the tickets and 70% of the cash in Vancouver. So it does look like Vancouver may be the public side here. Despite the fact that their record is slightly worse. They were a little bit hot recently. People just don't want anything to do with San Jose probably right now after their recent losses. So we're going to buck that perception there, and we're gonna grab San Jose there on that one. Mostly it is about the spot. And then Colorado, Vegas, debatably maybe the best game on the board here to finish it off. Late game, 10 p.m., Colorado went into the break on a long win streak. What else is new? It's Colorado, but 6 wins in a row. And again, when you go into a break, that's not good when you're winning, man. When you're winning, you want to keep playing. Like, you do not want to break here and then have a single-game road trip to Vegas. So could be a little bit of a disruptive break for Colorado there. Although you got to think they're still going to show up. Both teams will show up here. Both teams have a combined 10 regulation losses, which is crazy. Colorado only with 2. Vegas ended a 3-game losing streak in their last game with, unfortunately, that win I just mentioned where they beat us, beating San Jose, staying at home. But that break might not hurt them because, again, they just ended a loss streak. So I think there's less momentum to disrupt here. You know they're going to show up for a game against Colorado. So slight opinion for me on Vegas in this one. Colorado looks like they're going to be a public road favorite here, up from minus 135 to minus 141. Crazy that Colorado's so good that they're a decent favorite at Vegas. Crazy. Vegas, pretty good team. 69% of tickets, 71% of the cash on Colorado. I think they're shaping up to be a public road favorite here. Lean for me would be to grab Vegas as a dog in that one, money line, I suppose. All right. Going to get into NBA in a second, which it's going to be kind of boring because I don't have much to say about the NBA today. Here is the schedule here at the NBA and the board, I guess. The NBA, it makes me bored today, the NBA, to be honest. This is the entire, Cavs Rockets, I think, is one game. It's at the end of the board here, but hold on. I'm going to be right back because I am dealing with winter sinus crap again. I'll be right back. Hang on.
Four picks against Grossman and 2 fumbles. What do you see about the Bears? We shut them down that way?
No, we just the Bears are what we thought they were. They're what we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in the preseason like it's bull? We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
Thanks, Coach. Matt Leinart will be the only other person in this room, probably about 5 minutes away.
It's a disappointed coach.
All right, we're back. NBA. Whew. Yeah, I have ailments during every season, but I do not like this at all. Blues, Vegas, Blues again. 2 Blues and Blackhawks. I generally agree with all of those sides. Okay. NBA. Tough NBA card today, or board today, man. Again, there are certain teams that I definitely would want to fade, but they're all facing each other. Dallas at Sacramento is an early game at 5 p.m. Eastern for whatever reason on NBA TV. Now, this is the day where, by the way, a lot of times it does make sense to fade teams coming off of big Christmas performances because it's a big deal in the NBA or whatever. Now, Dallas maybe isn't one of those teams. They did have to play a big game on Christmas. They went to Golden State. The game was never really in doubt, though. I mean, I guess it was somewhat close coming down the stretch here. So Dallas did play, fairly competitively. I think Golden State did wind up with a cover in that one, though, which I said they would. One of the games I got right on Christmas, barely. So Dallas, I mean, they are kind of coming off a pretty big performance, though, I would say, and could be a bit of a hangover here. I mean, I don't know. Are they really going to focus on Sacramento? The travel isn't too bad, though, just going from Golden State to Sacramento. But it's possible they overlook Sacramento, although I don't think Dallas had any much bigger games upcoming. But Sacramento just had a somewhat close loss at home to Detroit. But the good thing for Sacramento is they didn't play on Christmas. They haven't played since Tuesday. So they've had a lot of days off to kind of just get over it and break that, if you want to call it losing momentum, and I'll just break free of that. So I do think the spot does set up better for the Kings slightly. I would lean to the Kings in this game. The money is disagreeing for now. Mavs are a 3-point road favorite. 58% of the tickets, 77% of the cash on the Mavs. I would slightly lean towards taking the points. I mean, nobody's going to want the Kings here. The public's definitely not going to want them. It looks too easy, I think, to lay the points with Dallas as well. You got to keep an eye on injury reports, as always, with Dallas. AD is questionable, I'm pretty sure. For Sacramento, Sabonis is still out, so not really a question there. He's not going to play. He's not going to be back for a while. I think he might be back within the next week or so, actually, but I don't know. We will see. Christmas throws off the NBA season. What do you mean? Denver at Orlando. I believe these two teams just played each other, if I'm not mistaken, in Denver. Yeah, Denver beat Orlando by 11 in Denver, which was a spot where I thought Orlando would cover, and Orlando was looking good early in the game, but, fell short of it. I think Orlando, I know Orlando's been dealing with injuries, as I pointed out already, so I forget what their lineup looked like in that game. Now, Denver did play on Christmas, and they had an overtime win over Minnesota. I could see this going two ways because you could argue, well, that was a big game, big effort. They went into overtime. They could be hung over coming off of that. You could also argue that, well, Denver was a pretty big favorite in that game. They should have won more easily. So maybe they'll be in more of a focus spot here after getting a scare, and they're starting a road trip where usually you are focused. But I think the former of those two is actually the way to look at this. I think Denver, I think it may very well be a hangover spot after a big OT game. Minnesota is still considered to be a good team. Denver got the win there. They're facing this Orlando team. They just played and beat them. Orlando's got a thin roster right now, unless these guys come back, which is still up in the air. And maybe Denver does focus a little bit more on Miami after this. I don't know. But I think maybe the lean in this game is towards Orlando. Orlando's coming off a disgusting loss to Charlotte. But again, that was the win that we had last night. So keep in mind, Orlando is on a back-to-back. But Orlando might be getting guys back here. So it's a very, very weird game to handicap here where normally I'm avoiding teams on a back-to-back. Here, you have game-time decision on both Suggs and Wagner here. Franz Wagner is the guy we want to look at. Mo Wagner, his brother, is the less impactful player significantly. Franz Wagner is the guy you want to keep an eye on. Both guys are game-time decisions between Suggs and Wagner. Now, if both those guys come back, normally I would say, well, that's a reverse injured player spot. You know, the team has to get used to those guys being on the floor again. They have to ramp up their play again. You know, the team's got to get used to their roles again. And while all that is true, I think that it actually is maybe helpful for them to come back in a spot like this because on a back-to-back, it's going to mean you're going to get a more rested Orlando lineup because those guys didn't play yesterday. So it kind of goes both ways in a case like this. Overall, I think I would slightly lean to the Magic in this game, but obviously not playing it. It looks like the market does agree with me on that. Nuggets, 3.5-point road favorite, 66% of tickets on them, 78% of the cash on the Magic. So it looks like it is agreeing with me. Christmas fucks up the schedule for good teams. Some players say the season doesn't start until Christmas. That is a weird way to look at it. Who's saying that? I guess probably what they mean is that, like, from Christmas on is, like, the final stretch of the season. Like, that's when the games have more meaning is probably what they mean. But it's not like players are just coming out and tanking, you know, all the way up until Christmas. I mean, that is not the case. But Christmas NBA is a weird thing. It's been around for a while now, but I don't know. I mean, it's all money making, like these ESPN and whatever. They just want to have these stupid events and make money, and it turns out pretty bad a lot of times. Like the Netflix Christmas games on football, the NFL games have been awful. Phoenix at New Orleans, this game, I mean, you could argue this is kind of just a straight up zigzag handicap here. As Phoenix they'd beaten the Lakers, and then they came out of that and they still beat New Orleans. Although I think New Orleans did cover this number, if I'm not mistaken, which was my opinion in that game, was to lean towards New Orleans. That was yesterday. Now they're playing again today in the same location in New Orleans. So you could argue that, well, Phoenix won the last game. Could be a zigzag spot where New Orleans is going to be the team that makes the adjustments here. Maybe that's true, but I believe Phoenix didn't even cover that number. But even so, I mean, I think the argument still remains that maybe the team that lost the previous game will be the team to be able to make more adjustments and play better here. Phoenix only plays Washington next, so it's not really a look-ahead spot for them. For New Orleans, they've now lost 2 games in a row. Could maybe be a bounce-back opportunity for them here. Yeah, I mean, to me, I guess it would be a slight lean to New Orleans just because it's a zigzag. Potentially, I think they would be the team maybe to make the adjustments here. The money seems to agree. Phoenix down from 5.5 to 5. 67% of tickets on the Suns, 73% of the cash on the Pelicans. So that's, the market read says the Pelicans. No. Tanking is not a thing. It's like massively overstated in every single sport. Unless players literally are betting against like their own props and stuff, they're not tanking. Like, it's just against human nature. Tanking is just such a bullshit thing. It's not a thing. Like, you get out on the floor, your competitive nature takes over. You're not going to intentionally lose a game. It's like saying you're going to go into a fight and then intentionally lose it. It doesn't make any sense. Even if the fight doesn't mean anything, you're still going to fight. Unless, again, you bet against yourself. If you have money against yourself, then that's a different story. Knicks at Atlanta. This is one of those games where I looked at it and I'm like, I kind of want to fade the Knicks here because they just had a big win on Christmas against Cleveland. However, you could argue that the Knicks are going to be more focused because they escaped against Cleveland, but they did have to put in a huge effort to come back. They were down 17 points in the fourth quarter in that game and won. They should have won more easily, arguably, as a favorite. I thought Cleveland might cover that one, which they did. They probably should have won. So the Knicks are coming off all that. They are starting a road trip. Usually teams are focused to start a road trip, so there are definitely some conflicting factors here. Could be a focus spot for them, but it could also be a letdown spot for them. The Hawks played yesterday, so they're on a back-to-back, and they played poorly again against Miami. They've lost 5 games in a row. Don't really love the idea of playing on a team on a back-to-back, but they are staying at home. You know they're not going to overlook the Knicks, though. Even though the Hawks are on a back-to-back, I still think overall, probably slight opinion for me on that side, on the Hawks. The Knicks are up to a 6.5-point favorite. It's going to be close to 7. 88% of the tickets, 97% of the cash on the Knicks. They're going to be the public side at the very least. Slight opinion on the Hawks for me, but I don't like it at all. They're lazy and they don't play defense. Sometimes it depends on the individual game, in my opinion. Again, I think tanking is way overstated. I do not think it's really a thing. Karl Anthony Towns got married. I guess that is a distraction. Then to add that into the mix, the just got married spot. I don't know what else to call it. The husband spot. I thought, but that's did he marry a dude? I was going to say, I thought the whole thing was that KAT is gay. Gay AT. Wow, I'm surprised. He's not gay? Whoa. Indiana at Miami. Now, Indiana's on a back-to-back, which I know because my Boston Celtics beat them again, and this time beat them way more easily in Indiana. Indiana's on a big-time slide here, and now on a back-to-back. They've lost 7 games in a row. Maybe it'll be good for them to just go out on the road, though, because, of course, remember, these teams on back-to-backs today, most of them, pretty much all of them, had multiple days off prior to yesterday. I mean, they all did. I think no team played yesterday and also played on Christmas. I don't think so. Or if they did, they're not playing today. So Indiana on a back-to-back, they did have rest prior to that. Ugly loss. Maybe it'll be good for them to just forget about that, go on the road. They're facing Miami here. Miami, they just beat Atlanta pretty soundly. They're also on a back-to-back. They just won at Atlanta yesterday. So big win for them coming back home. They might overlook Indiana, man. They got Denver up next. So I think it is kind of a sandwich spot for Miami. So I would lean towards Indiana in the spot. Both teams actually on back-to-backs with travel. Miami did just break a losing streak, so sometimes that'll give you momentum. But with their next 3 games being Denver, Detroit, Minnesota, looks really, really easy for them to just look right past the Pacers here. Pacers, again, off an ugly loss. I think the only way to look at this game is to take the points with the Pacers. Probably one of the stronger NBA opinions for me of the day. 67% of the tickets and cash on the Heat as an 8.5-point favorite. That would be my opinion in that one. Milwaukee at Chicago. Man, there's so many fucking games today in the NBA and NHL. Milwaukee, they played yesterday and they lost real bad. Lost by 21 at Memphis. Now they're traveling up to Chicago, but again, they did have rest prior to that game against Memphis. Playing against Chicago here. Chicago also played yesterday and continued their win streak, so their momentum was not snapped. They now have won 5 games in a row. They beat Philadelphia yesterday, I believe in a slight upset maybe. Now they're facing Milwaukee, who's just been really bad without Giannis. They're still without Giannis. And Chicago does have Minnesota next. Maybe they'd be looking ahead to that game against Minnesota because Minnesota's got the better record, whatever. Yeah, I mean, for me, slight opinion towards Milwaukee in this one. Where are they at? The Bulls already dropped from a 5-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. 76% of tickets on the Bulls, 56% of the cash on the Bucks. So the money seems to agree with me on that one as well. On the Milwaukee side, I've had a decent gauge on Milwaukee recently as well, for what it's worth. I was correct about them beating Indiana. I gave them out as a play against Minnesota. That was a win. Against Boston, that was a win. I believe we faded them as well against Brooklyn, and that was a win as well. Don't remember if I gave them out or not against Toronto, but I have had a good gauge on them recently, so we'll see if that continues. Cleveland at Houston, this is the game where really both teams are in spots where if they were playing any other team right now, I'd be fading them both. Very unfortunate these teams are playing each other, because how does Cleveland get back up off the mat after what they just did on Christmas? They just went into New York to Madison Square Garden. They had the Knicks completely on the ropes, up by 17 in the fourth quarter, and they lose the game. How do you get back up off the mat after that? I know they're having to play Houston. Houston's a good team, but traveling down to Houston to play Houston, man, that is ugly. Really, really difficult spot for Cleveland here, man. And for Houston, it's not much better. Houston played on Christmas, and they beat the Lakers on the road, and now they're returning home from a long road trip. But they were on the road from December 15th through Christmas, and they had to play on the road on Christmas. So they're coming back home, and you got to think they have holiday stuff to do, like a late holiday celebration, in addition to the return home spot, in addition to it being a huge letdown spot after crushing the Lakers on national TV on Christmas on the road. I mean, this looks like a horrible spot for Houston. Return home spot, again, tends to be a distraction. It was a long road trip. Maybe they won't overlook Cleveland, but man, I mean, beating the Lakers is a much, much bigger deal, especially for a Western Conference team. So I think it is a letdown spot, major distraction spot here. I think the spot is actually worse for Houston than it is for the Cavs. So I'm going to lean towards the Cavs in this one. Houston down from 6-4 here on the line. There isn't a whole lot going on with the injury situation. I think you do have to watch Sengun to see if he is playing or not for Houston. 62% of the tickets, 56% of the cash on the Rockets. Cavs are mostly an intact roster right now, I believe, except for the guys that are like already known to be out for the season. Yeah, the money seems to agree with the Cavs side here. I agree with that, but I can't get there with it. I mean, I think Cleveland's also in a bad spot, so it's a pass for me. Don't like it at all. Brooklyn at Minnesota. Now, if I was going to play any NBA game today, it might be this one. Saab is not here, so I'm going to have to be the Nets whisperer for him here. Brooklyn, they did just beat Philly, so this is what worries me, because I like Brooklyn in this game. But they're coming off upset wins over Toronto and Philadelphia, so I do worry about that. And they went into the break after that, so that break might ruin their momentum a little bit. So I don't like that. That might slow their momentum a little bit, although I don't think they're going to overlook Minnesota here. Now, for Minnesota, they could definitely easily overlook Brooklyn. Minnesota's coming off that really tough overtime game against Denver. And prior to that, they beat Oklahoma City, Milwaukee, in a sandwich spot. They escaped with a win there. I think we got the cover with Milwaukee in that one. And then Minnesota beat the Knicks. So they've started to play well against good teams finally. And that overtime loss at Denver, that's got to take a lot out of you, man. Now you come back home and you face an awful net team, and then you go right back out on the road to face Chicago, who's at least a team that will at least draw more of your focus than Brooklyn will. I think if you're going to play the game, you got to fade the T-Wolves. They're down from 12.5 to 10.5, 67% of the tickets, 79% of the cash on the Nets. So the money is coming in on the Nets. No, I disagree with Houston, and I disagree with the under in that game. I think Houston's in the way worse spot because it's a return home spot, in addition to it being a massive Christmas letdown spot. And I think that in a game like that, you actually want to go over, because it has mostly an effect on the defense when the teams are tired, a.k.a. in a bad spot, whatever, although I'm not really a totals guy. The total has already plummeted down from 241 to 233.5. So if you like the under, there's absolutely no value left in it. Utah at San Antonio, but yeah, Brooklyn would be the game that I would actually maybe consider playing in the NBA today. I would take the points with Brooklyn, but I don't love it either. Utah, this is another one where I saw San Antonio on the schedule. I'm like, come on, man. San Antonio is in such a monster letdown spot here. You got to fade them. But then I'm like, oh, shit. Utah just beat Detroit yesterday. So Utah's in a back-to-back. They have a single-game road trip to San Antonio for whatever reason. The good thing about it is they broke a loss streak, and they've been playing generally pretty competitively, although they are definitely more competitive at home. But it seems like a letdown spot coming off the win over Detroit. They should still be focused against San Antonio. And yes, I do think the spot is worse for San Antonio because they just beat Oklahoma City again on Christmas. Now they've beaten them back-to-back. Now they beat them neutral site in San Antonio and Oklahoma City, the trifecta, and with the last one being the most difficult, and it being on Christmas. And after they play Utah, which they might completely overlook them, they got Cleveland and New York in their next two games. So the spot is horrible for San Antonio. It is basically a sandwich spot. If you're going to play it, I think you got to take the points with Utah, but I can't really get there with it because, again, they're just off a difficult game themselves, a big-time upset win. So I'm staying away, unfortunately. Spurs, 75% of tickets on them, 85% of the cash on the Jazz. The money looks like it's kind of come in on the under in that one as well. But again, even though I'm not really a totals guy, I tend to think that when teams are in bad spots, I do this mostly in hockey, and it has worked out more often than it hasn't, is that I think it affects the defense more than the offense. It's harder to play defense than it is to play offense. So when you're either lacking focus or tired, I think it's harder to play defense. So I think it lends itself to more scoring. That's my opinion there. Cleveland has way more threes than Houston. Yeah, Houston doesn't take threes. They're a huge team. They're a paint presence team. Houston, they sound like Houston's college basketball team. They don't take that many threes, but they're very efficient at hitting them. Similar to Houston's college basketball team. Speaking of college, we have college football. We have 8 bowl games today. I thought it was 7. It's 8. And you know how ridiculous these bowl games get. And the first one is up at 11 a.m., unfortunately. This is the biggest, it's not the biggest bowl day necessarily, but it's the day that has the most bowls on it. But with the transfer stuff getting in the way, man, it is so difficult to handicap these bowls. And I'm sticking with one that was kind of an initial handicap for me. We're getting a better number on it now because of some stuff that's happened. We're getting almost what the initial number was on it. So I'm sticking with my gut instinct again on my one bowl game today, and hopefully it is going to work out. It is not the first game, which is the GoBowling Military Bowl, which I assume GoBowling is literally like a bowling company. But in this case, we're bowling. We're bowling in more ways than one here. We're going to be in a college bowl here. This is Pitt and East Carolina, and the game is in Annapolis, Maryland, because it is the Military Bowl, so it is hosted by the Navy, the Naval Academy. Not really a venue that's beneficial necessarily for one team or the other. Both teams are in the Eastern time zone, whatever. They're both not that far away. Pitt probably has just a bigger fan base in general, and it's going to be a little bit cold, so I think the 40-degree weather and whatever, I think is actually more beneficial to Pittsburgh because Pitt is more of a defensive team. They run the football quite a bit. East Carolina, not that they really necessarily do anything well, but they're kind of a more warmish weather team, so there are definitely some benefits to Pitt here. Now, you got to always look at the opt-outs, whatever. I've switched over to using Action Network for this. Whoops, I just gave away what my other plays are, but Action Network is doing a better job keeping track of all the opt-outs here. A little bit harder to read because they're all in different sections. They split it out into sections so you can kind of see what's going on. So looking at Pitt for their opt-outs, they don't have too many opt-outs really, so it looks like for the most part, Pitt is going to be somewhat showing up in this game. They do have a few guys in the transfer portal, but depending on the school, guys can be in the transfer portal but still play in their bowl game. So that's another thing. Like a guy can be like, I'm transferring out, but I'm still going to play in this bowl game. And it looks like that's happening with a few of Pitt's players. They do have, I guess their most key opt-out is one of their running backs, but they do play, like, they do have multiple running backs that they use. So Desmond Reed, I don't even know if he's their top running back. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. They do have a few injuries, but I mean, this is football. Every team has injuries. So for the most part, Pitt is, they're mostly intact. And then for coaching, not really much going on with their coaching either, other than the fact that their defensive coordinator has announced that he is retiring after this. So he is going to call the defensive plays here, and it'll be his last game. But if anything, the guys might get pumped and play for him. You know what I mean? If they know that Randy Bates is going to retire, it might be like a going out party. You know what I mean? So I'm really not interested in fanning Pitt in this game, but to put it mildly, although you got to lay a ton of points if you want Pitt here. And part of the reason for that is that East Carolina is actually the team that has all these opt-outs, which you'd think it would be the opposite. Like, Pitt was the team that was in the ACC race almost up until the end of the season. So you would have to think that Pitt, I mean, you still have to kind of worry that maybe Pitt's a little bit disappointed because they thought they could make the ACC championship, whatever. Now they're in an 11 a.m. bowl game in cold weather playing against East Carolina. That is what worries me about Pitt. It doesn't really seem like a game they're necessarily going to get up for, other than the fact that it looks like they are going to play and show up here. And East Carolina, shockingly, they're the team where people are opting out. Their quarterback is not playing, Hauser. So their offense is already not that good to begin with, but their offense is going to struggle here, man. East Carolina, they played well in their bowl game last year. They beat in-state big brother NC State, but it seems like they're somewhat disinterested in playing this game against Pitt. They have numerous opt-outs on the offensive side, including their quarterback. And those are really the big things going on here. And then their defensive coordinator actually left for South Florida. So actually both coordinators are leaving. Their OC is leaving for Ole Miss as well. So I believe both of their coordinators are going to be gone for this game as well. So that's not good either for East Carolina. So obviously Pitt is going to be the favorite here. They're already up to a 13-point favorite, though. So if you like Pitt, I mean, you're not getting any value at this point. They were initially a 6-point favorite, and now because of all the opt-outs and whatever, they're a 13-point favorite. There's no value left in it, man. 77% of the tickets, 83% of the cash on Pitt. They should win the game, I would imagine. Pitt is also kind of a more defensive-minded team. The total seems high. Even still, it's down from 59.5 all the way down to 52. Of course, because of all the East Carolina offensive opt-outs. But if Pitt's going to just have the lead and then just start running the football and playing defense and whatever, the total still seems kind of high to me at 52. So maybe worth considering a little bit, maybe, although you could have gotten a much better number earlier. 59% of tickets, 56% of the cash on the over. And, you know, I don't love playing, losing that much value on a number either, though. So this game's got to be a pass for me, but I expect Pitt will win the game. So we will see. No, what did Lane Kiffin do? He took a grocery store basket home with him. Does he usually not do his own shopping? Does he even know that you're not supposed to do that, or did he do it intentionally? I have no idea. Stacks, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. Stacks, thanks for having me on your show last week. I was on Stacks' show. You guys can check that out. Making it to the Super Bowl. Oh, God. That is I have to stick with the Packers because the Packers were my NFC pick preseason. So I'm going to go with the Packers to shock everybody. And it's going to be even more shocking after I analyze tonight's game. I will go with the Packers out of the NFC. And then AFC... Oh, God. I mean, preseason I said Baltimore, but that was before I realized that Baltimore was going to have a massively injured Lamar Jackson who doesn't even look like he's interested in playing anymore. And it looks like they aren't playing Derrick Henry either. So it's like, I don't know. Baltimore, of course, they're completely on the ropes and likely to not even make the playoffs. So I can't go with Baltimore. I think the Packers would have to be my pick to win the Super Bowl now, because I think they're going to, they're still my pick to win the NFC, so I'm just going to stick with it. Although, after seeing how the season has played out, the Rams are going to be really, really difficult to knock out in the NFC. They're probably the best team in the NFL, the Rams. I mean, certainly possible that the Rams do it. Very balanced team as well. And people still might kind of seem to be overlooking the Rams a little bit. For the AFC, though, I mean, the AFC is just awful, dude. The AFC is wide open. Like, the Chiefs would be favored against all but, like, 2 teams in the AFC, and they're already eliminated. That's how bad the AFC is. Like, the best team in the AFC might actually be Houston. It's crazy. I mean, Houston has a really, really good defense, and their offense is decent enough, and they have a decent amount of experience now, having been to the playoffs multiple times. I might go with Houston to make the Super Bowl, man. I mean, I know it sounds that really sounds insane, but I know Denver has a really good defense, but their offense is just not good enough to me. They're not experienced enough. A lot of these other teams, they're just not experienced enough. And the Bills, I don't trust their defense at all. The AFC is just a mess right now, man. I mean, it would be insane if, dude, imagine if the Super Bowl is Rodgers against Stafford, the old man bowl. That would be unbelievable. But they've both won Super Bowls before. They're both experienced. I mean, it's almost like you can't count the Steelers out, even though they have not clinched a playoff spot yet. They just keep Mike Tomlining, man. That's what I call it. They keep winning, even though they have a severe lack of talent. I mean, Rodgers is still out there just kind of doing his thing and whatever. They keep winning. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. The Steelers, I mean, I know as Mike Tomlin does, they usually just get to the playoffs and then run into a team that's better than them and lose. But the AFC is so wide open this year. There is a chance that it could be the Steelers. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, the Steelers have a shot. I mean, if they win one more game, they're going to be in the playoffs. Your Panthers beat the Rams. That's true. That was a weird spot for the Rams, though. I still don't buy that the Panthers are any good at all, to be honest. It would be pretty insane if the Panthers are in the playoffs. I think they're a one-and-done playoff team if they make the playoffs at all. He didn't know, and he refused to buy the 10-cent bag. I kind of like Lane Kiffin for that, to be honest. I don't think he's a serial killer. He might be like a serial sex offender or something like that, though. He likes women. Let's just put it that way. Houston playing on Saturday afternoon. What? When's the last time they played on a Saturday afternoon? I don't know. They probably played one playoff game. No, their playoff games last year were both night games, I think, as well. I don't know what we're talking about here. They have an afternoon game today, but they played on Christmas afternoon last year. That was not a Saturday. That was a Wednesday, I believe. So I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about there. All right. Anyway, yeah, that was the GoBowling Military Bowl there. At noon, the bowls start overlapping. We have the Disappointment Bowl, Penn State and Clemson, which is actually the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl on ABC. That first game I talked about is on ESPN. Because, of course, everybody wants to watch these bowls where teams don't give a shit about being there, right? That's really the best thing to watch today. It's ridiculous. But yes, this game, I mean, Penn State and Clemson, they both started the season with national title aspirations. They both made the playoffs last year. And now they're both playing in the New York City in the Pinstripe Bowl. And I can tell you it has been snowing up in the Northeast here. So it's 32 degrees and it just snowed. I think it's not snowing during the game, but snow just came in through the Northeast, man. So which one of these teams is going to play better in the cold, though? You got to think that's going to be Penn State. Because they're from a colder weather environment. So the cold environment here probably is actually better for Penn State, and they're closer. And I think their fan base probably will actually travel better for this game. So there are some advantages to Penn State in this one. Of course, you got to look at the opt-outs here, and the opt-outs in this game are just crazy. Penn State's opt-outs are unbelievable. Like, half the team is not playing in this game for obvious reasons. I mean, the coach is gone. James Franklin obviously got fired. They'll be sticking with their interim coach, though, but in a way that's not that horrible just because they've had that coach for several weeks now, so he's going to just keep coaching for this bowl game. They know Matt Campbell is coming in next year. So in a way, some of these players are going to want to play hard and look good for the incoming Matt Campbell, you know what I mean? And maybe play hard for the interim too. So the one thing that you do get when you have a team where all these starters are just not going to play in the game, the backups, when they get an opportunity, even if they're not as good, you get effort out of the backups. You know what I mean? The backups get their chance to play on national TV, and they don't usually get to play. So a lot of times they get excited about it. But yes, Penn State, 80% of their starting offensive line has opted out of this game. Pretty much. They got a lot of guys out. I believe their quarterback is still playing, although, of course, Drew Aller got hurt during the season. So whoever came in and backed him up, he's still playing in this game, I guess, the quarterback. But it's mostly going to be a Penn State second-string team here. And then as far as Clemson, it looks like they have fewer opt-outs on the Clemson side. They do have some, obviously. They have a bunch of guys entering the NFL draft, a lot of it on the defense. So Clemson's defense is actually going to take a bigger hit in this game through the transfer portal and the opt-outs. It's almost all defense. It looks like Klubnik is still playing in the bowl game, their quarterback. So he's been there for years now. He is their star quarterback. He's going to play in the game. This game is really, really difficult to figure out. They do have a whole list of injuries here. Klubnik, I guess, has been injured technically, but I guess he's saying he's going to play. Dabo Sweeney is still coaching at Clemson. He's still there. He's got a lot of bowl experience. And now, here's the thing about Clemson is that one reason why they might show up here is Clemson has some ridiculous streak where they've won either a bowl game or a playoff game in 15 years in a row, I believe. As insane as that sounds, Clemson, they just keep winning these bowl games, man. So they get up for bowl games. They get well coached in bowl games for whatever reason. So very, very difficult game to handicap. The money is coming in on Clemson, and they flipped from a 1-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite. 61% of the cash on them, 50% of the tickets evenly split. I mean, Clemson has to be the favorite here because they have fewer opt-outs and their quarterback is playing, but their defense is definitely taking a hit. Even though it looks like the money kind of came in a little bit on the under, down from 48.5 to 47. I know there were a lot of offensive opt-outs on Penn State, but I mean, if there are a lot of guys not playing on the defenses too, you might actually see this game being, getting over this total. I don't know, 59% of the tickets and cash on the under. But again, if you're getting defenses that might not be playing as intense potentially, it is possible this thing gets over this total. Although I've also seen bowl games like this where they wind up being very low scoring as well. But Clemson, I mean, they're taking mostly the hit that they're taking is all on the defensive side of the ball. Weird game for sure. Very, very difficult to handicap. My initial instinct on this was that Penn State might be more motivated because I just think that their season was done so early on and they were just such a laughing stock after they lost to UCLA and whatever, and their season was over so quickly that it's not like they went deep into the season thinking they were going to make the playoffs or whatever, but neither did Clemson. Clemson's season was over early on too. They had a loss to Syracuse early on, so they're both kind of in the same boat. I guess I'll slightly lean to Clemson just because they do have the more intact team slightly. They have a little bit more experience on their side with Klubnik playing, more experienced coach, of course. And I think to keep their streak alive of winning all these bowl and playoff games, I think they might be motivated for that reason, but I don't like the cold weather aspect of this for Clemson, really. So it's an interesting one for sure. And Bad Boy Mowers, by the way, used to be the Gasparilla Bowl sponsor for a bit, and now they're sponsoring the Pinstripe Bowl here. Texas have made the playoffs 8 times, and every game was at 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon. No, that is not correct. They played 2 playoff games last year. They were both at night. Because I absolutely know, because one of them was a win for me on Houston at home against the Chargers, and the other one was the game at Kansas City. Both of those were absolutely night games because I remember watching them. So I don't know what you're talking about. All right. UConn and Army. on ESPN, 2:15 p.m. in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. The Fenway Bowl is usually at 11 a.m. Like, since its inception, it's only happened like 4 times maybe, but it's always at 11 a.m. And now it got pushed back to 2:15 p.m. probably because nobody wants to play in Fenway at 11 a.m., especially in the winter. And as I said, it's cold up here. It just snowed overnight here. So they're going to have to clear the field here. It won't be snowing during the game, but 23 degrees. So this is UConn and Army. And I know both teams are, probably decently, they're probably going to be all right in a cold weather environment because UConn is from New England and Army runs the football and plays defense because they're a service academy. But you got to think that the cold weather environment will help Army a little bit more just because they run the football. Running the football and playing defense, that plays a lot better in cold weather environments, whereas UConn, their playbook is mostly all throwing the football. But the problem with that is that UConn, their best player, their star quarterback, Fagnano, this year, he is either opting out or I don't know if he's in the transfer portal or if he's just going into the NFL draft. But UConn, they might be down to a fourth-string quarterback here, as this says. Fagnano's not playing. I don't know if he's going into the draft or what he's doing. But basically all of UConn's quarterbacks are opting out. And look at this parade of guys opting out for UConn, which is crazy. Like, their entire team is basically opting out of this game. So it's almost insane that UConn can even field a team in this game. So this is why Army is a massive favorite in this game, because normally if both teams were fielding their full team, UConn would actually probably be a slight favorite here. And they probably get a little bit of the crowd in Boston, even though Army's not that far away either. But in this case, UConn is just getting totally depleted by the transfer portal, by the opt-outs, whatever, the draft. Army, they're not allowed to hit the transfer portal. The service academies don't do the transfers. So service academies don't participate, I don't think, in the NIL or the transfer stuff. So this is why the service academies tend to do well in bowls, or part of the reason why. But of course, the transfer stuff is new. But the service academies basically always field their complete team for the bowl games because there are just rules against it, and they're just super disciplined teams and whatever. So they usually play well in the bowl games, man. Service academies, by the way, are on an 11-1 against the spread run in bowl games. So they cover a lot in bowl games. However, a lot of times they're coming into these bowl games as an underdog. And in this case, that is certainly not the case with Army because, again, Connecticut basically doesn't even have a team in this game. So Army has gone up from a 2.5-point favorite to a 7.5-point favorite now. 58% of the tickets, only 53% of the cash on them. And the total has really plummeted down from 51 to 42, mostly because of UConn's offense pretty much all opting out of the game. Money's still coming in on the under. 65% of the tickets, 92% of the cash on the under. What else was I going to say about this game? But yeah, this game, I would still possibly lean to an under in this game. UConn, maybe you could go with UConn's team total under because we don't even know who they're playing on their offense here. A fourth-string quarterback with zero experience and all these other offensive players opting out. It seems like they're not going to put a whole lot of points up on the board here. Army will be running the football and keeping UConn's offense off the field. Army's defense is actually fairly solid. Looks like it does have the makings of UConn not scoring a lot in this game. Now, do I want to lay 7.5 with an Army team that doesn't score a lot? Not really, although UConn is not good at defending the run, so there is that. It does mean that if Army is winning the game, they can keep running it and actually put up more points because UConn's not good at defending the run. UConn did face Air Force this year, so they actually faced 2 triple option attacks this year. They faced Rice, although Rice doesn't do it that well. Rice actually beat them, but it was in a really bad spot for UConn. And UConn, I believe they beat Air Force this year, but Army is better than Air Force. So UConn does not face a triple option that's quite as good as Army's, although Navy has the best out of them. But all that being said, yeah, I expect Army to win the game. I'm not really keen on taking the points with a UConn team that's completely depleted either. I think if you have to play the game, oh my God. It's difficult to say. I mean, I might probably even still lay the points just because Army's the team is just fielding the complete team. But I really worry about laying points, again, with a rushing team, with a defense. I don't love that. Also, Army just played Navy really close. That is something to keep in mind. Army, Navy, that's a big game. Both those teams wanted an Army covered and lost by 1 point in their big Army-Navy game. So could maybe set up a little bit of a hangover. But again, these military academies don't really have that much of a hangover effect in these bowl games. They tend to come out and play well. They're super disciplined. They don't allow opt-outs, so they field their full team. So that's what's going on in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. Chargers versus Texans. I'm almost positive that was a night game because that was a bet that I gave out on the show. All right, we have Georgia Tech and BYU. Number 22, Georgia Tech. Number 12, BYU. This is the Pop-Tarts Bowl where Notre Dame was going to be in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, and they said, no, fuck you, and they're not going to be in a bowl game. Iowa State also did that, and so did Kansas State, although I think this game originally was going to be BYU against Notre Dame probably, and Georgia Tech was going to be in some other bowl, but Georgia Tech now slides into the Pop-Tart Bowl. This will actually be a good weather game for once after some shit weather, cold weather games all in the morning and early afternoon here. This game's going to be in Florida, in Orlando, so you get good weather for this one. These teams are mostly showing up, man. Teams tend to want to show up for the Pop-Tart Bowl because they get to kill an anthropomorphic Pop-Tart. If you haven't seen it, it's the most demonic presentation that exists. This bowl has only existed for 2 years. And now they're increasing the amount of Pop-Tarts from 3 to 5. So the winning team gets to choose one of those Pop-Tarts, toast the Pop-Tart, kill it, and then eat it. And then last year they resurrected the strawberry frosted Pop-Tart that was killed in Pop-Tart Bowl 1, which came back as a one-eyed zombie Pop-Tart because that's all kid-friendly stuff going on in this bowl game, you know. It is a satanic demonstration in the Pop-Tart Bowl, man. But we're trying to handicap this game, and in this game, you know I've been talking about how I think Georgia Tech's been overrated all year. So I think this game's going to be almost kind of a straight-up handicap because both teams are fielding most of their teams for this game. There aren't many opt-outs in this one. BYU absolutely has the better defense, and I think that's probably the difference in this game. And they're the more physical team, and Georgia Tech is a more finesse team that has a bad defense and focuses more on offense. And while I like their quarterback, Haynes King, I just don't really see it for Georgia Tech here, man. I think they're going to have a hard time against a physical defensive team. It's a big team like BYU, which BYU hasn't really had a persona like this being in the Big 12, but now that they do, which is basically why Utah has been successful in that conference, I think it's going to be something that Georgia Tech hasn't really had to go up against this year. So I do like BYU in this one. As far as what the market looks like, BYU's up from a 2.5-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. I think they were at 4.5 for a little while. 54% of tickets, 55% of the cash on BYU. I agree with BYU here. It is a high total as well, up to 56. 72% of tickets on the over and 82% of the cash on the over, although I could see the game being high scoring again. I mean, I think both Pop-Tart Bowls in the past were high scoring. I mean, it's a good weather game. Maybe the teams won't come out and really totally sell out on defense, but I think if you like BYU, you got to kind of like their defense to kind of keep Georgia Tech in check. Georgia Tech in check. Yeah, I'm rhyming. I'm a poet here now. But I think BYU, I mean, you could argue that BYU is also correlated to the under in this game, so I don't love the over that much. I think if I was going to play the game, I would probably lean towards BYU, even though I really don't love laying points with a defensive team either. But I think BYU should be able to score against Georgia Tech because their defense is not that good. Now, in this game, there are a few guys hitting the transfer portal, but nothing major. Looks like Georgia Tech, most of the guys that could have opted out are playing, including, of course, Haynes King, their most key player, their quarterback. Very good quarterback, dual threat quarterback, runs their offense. And then the major thing for Georgia Tech really is, they got a couple of injuries here, more affecting the defense than the offense. So the major thing for Georgia Tech is their offensive coordinator is leaving to go to Florida. So Georgia Tech's been mostly an offensive team, and now their co-offensive coordinator, former quarterback Chris Winkie, is going to be calling the plays here, which maybe that affects the offense here for Georgia Tech, man. So it's a little bit worrisome that I think Faulkner, the OC who's leaving, also took some of his staff with him to Florida. So Georgia Tech is going to have a depleted offensive coaching staff, which isn't great. For BYU, it looks like there's not a whole lot going on with BYU. They got a couple of injuries, but other than that, I mean, it looks like they might actually have almost no opt-outs in this one. So pretty complete roster for BYU here. The biggest missing piece here is Georgia Tech's offensive coordinator. And, of course, they're more of an offensive team, so that might be a problem in that one. So I think BYU is going to be the team eating the Pop-Tart at the end of the day. I don't know if it's against their Mormonism to kill and eat an anthropomorphic Pop-Tart, though. Don't know if that thing is I don't know. What is the Mormons' equivalent of kosher or whatever? I have no idea. Mormon kosher? Mormosher? I have no idea, but BYU is my opinion in that one at 3:30 p.m. on ABC. The Bush family in Israel. Why would they make their because they're probably fans of Dallas, right? So they're gonna try to screw Houston. Is that what you're saying? I don't know. Making them play on Saturday or whatever. I have no idea. Next up at 4:30 p.m. as we get into the late afternoon on the CW. This is the game that gets the least television fanfare, and probably rightly so, because you're going to have some ugly offense in this game, most likely. This is the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, so even Snoop Dogg can't get this game to be on a better network, even though I'm assuming he's going to be at the bowl because it's his bowl now. They're going to hotbox the entire stadium, by the way. This is in Tucson, so I think it's probably hosted by the University of Arizona, although I'm not positive about that. But, yeah, they're going to put a roof over the stadium, and everybody's just going to smoke, man. And, dude, they should have scheduled this game at 4:20. How could the Snoop Dogg Bowl not be at 4:20? What are you doing, man? It's at 4:30. You had an opportunity to do something so funny and have this game be at 4:20. Give me a break, man. But anyway, this is going to be an ugly game, man. So you're probably going to want to be high if you're watching this game because there's not a whole lot going on with these offenses. This is Miami, Ohio, and Fresno State in this one. Samuel, what's up, man? CW, they do have a logo, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just a C and a W. I can picture it in my mind. They have a logo. Not on ESPN. ESPN's not showing their logo. Maybe they don't have the rights to it. They do have a logo though. Too baked to notice it. Yeah, maybe Snoop Dogg will be so high that he won't even show up. And I mean, dude, Snoop Dogg, I mean, he'd probably be rooting for Fresno in this game, right? Because they're a California team here. Fresno probably will get a little bit more of the fans to show up. It's a little bit more in their neck of the woods, playing in Arizona as a Mountain West team. So the venue, the site is probably a little bit better for Fresno here. Now for Miami, Ohio, I mean, they should have been one of the better teams in the MAC. They kind of fell apart during the middle of the season. They still... they had a chance. I think they actually did. They actually made the title game. What am I saying? Yeah, Miami, Ohio actually made the championship game in the MAC and lost. So they could actually be maybe a disappointed team because they lost the MAC championship game to a Western Michigan team they'd beaten earlier in the season. So Miami, Ohio had a chance to be in a better bowl, even though Western Michigan already played, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, I think. Maybe Miami, Ohio won't be as... happy about being in the Arizona Bowl, and you could actually see that Miami, Ohio is not as excited about this because they got a lot of guys hitting the transfer portal, including one of the best wide receivers in the country, Cam Perry. He's not playing for Miami, Ohio. He's gone. Their best defensive player, Adam Trick, defensive end, really good pass rusher. He's out as well. So their best, one of their best players on both sides of the ball, gone. And their quarterback, Finn, I think he's been gone for a bit now, but he left the program entirely, I think, during the season. So they're going to be without him as well, obviously. But I think they've been without him for a little while. But Miami, Ohio, they're definitely hurting, man. kind of on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense. Their best offensive lineman is also not playing and is in the transfer portal at the very least. So definitely looks like a game Miami, Ohio is not going to field their complete team, and to say the least. For Fresno, it looks like there are fewer issues there. It looks like they have a safety, Davis, who might be in the transfer portal. Couple of maybe other potential opt-outs on the defensive side, but other than that, they're going to be mostly intact here. And then their quarterback is going to be Carson Conklin, which I don't really think that matters. Their quarterback for a lot of the year was Kurt Warner's son, I believe, one of his sons, Evan Warner, I think is his name. Or is it his grandson now? Am I that old? Is Warner that old? I don't know, whatever. But Conklin will be the starter. He does have some experience, but Fresno, they're not a good passing attack anyway, man. So both of these teams, I think, are going to struggle offensively. They're both not good offenses anyway, but Miami, Ohio, really depleted on offense. And Fresno, they just don't throw the ball well. Both teams are better on defense than offense, so you know where I'm going with this. If I was going to play the game, I think the under would be the way to play, but you got to get at least 41 if you're going to go under on this. The total has crashed from 45 to 40.5. 64% of tickets, 75% of the cash on the under. I agree with the under, but 41 is a key number. I think you got to at least try to get 41 if you're going to go under in this one. And I don't really like the idea of fading Miami, Ohio in this game either. Fresno is up from 3.5 to 4.5 here. They have the more complete roster here, obviously. It looks like some of the money's kind of disagreeing with it, but for these bowl games, it's really hard to read the market percentages and really get a good gauge on what's going on. 63% of tickets, only 61% of the cash on Fresno, but I mean, on the side, I think it's probably Fresno or pass, but the problem is it's a very low total. So obviously, when points are at a premium, it does kind of make more sense to want to take the points. But I think Fresno might actually be the more excited team here too, because I think they haven't been to a bowl in a bit, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot about that little aspect of this game here. No, they lost the Potato Bowl last year. My mistake. Oh no, my mistake. They won a bowl 2 years ago in the New Mexico Bowl, but so my mistake there. But they'll be in their area of the country for this. The next game up is the game I'm actually going to give out a play on, which is number 25, still ranked North Texas against San Diego State in the ESPN Isleta, New Mexico Bowl. I have no idea what Isleta is. This used to be Gildan, the sports clothing company or whatever. Gildan used to be the sponsor. I don't know what Isleta even is. I have no idea. It sounds like this should be like a travel company. Snoop Dogg, what? He thinks black people don't watch the Cleveland show? Is that what we're saying? I don't know, man. I mean, everybody got so offended by a white guy doing Cleveland's voice. All of that is just such bullshit, man. Like, the only rule is just be funny. That's it. Kurt Warner, yeah, was a grocery bagger. That is pretty funny, actually. Yeah, and Lane Kiffin has never even been inside a grocery store. That is correct. Yeah, that is true. All right, this game is going to be my best bet on the bowl slate today. This is one that I had my eye on early on. It's mostly because of the disappointment aspect of it. We're going to take San Diego State plus the points. It is 6.5 now. I think it was 7 at some point, although it looks like it opened at 6. I do think it was 7. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I might wait on this because this game isn't until 5:45, and if the number drops back to 6, you're not really losing much between 6.5 and 6. Like, there might be 7s showing up. Probably not, but maybe. North Texas is probably going to get the public action here because, of course, you know what the public likes. They like offense, and North Texas had one of the most high-scoring offenses that we've ever seen this year, and they don't like teams that play defense like San Diego State. 59% of tickets, 62% of the cash on North Texas. I expect North Texas to just be a public side, though, and I think this is a game where taking the points makes sense, and of course, when it's crazy offense against crazy defense, of course, the total is correlated with the side here. Like, if you like North Texas, you probably like the over. If you like San Diego State, you probably like the under. The totals dropped from 56.5 to 53. Some of it has to do with some offensive opt-outs, though. 65% of tickets, 67% of the cash on the over. The total looks crazy low for a North Texas game. I think this is the lowest total for North Texas this season, and it's also the highest for San Diego State this season. That shows you how different these teams are. Like, these teams are in different worlds. One team is all offense, one team is all defense, and there's almost no no middle ground there. You know what I mean? It's just a major contrast in styles here. But you know me, I like taking points with the defense, and the public usually is all over the offense. That's what I'm doing here. But the biggest part of this handicap is North Texas has got to be super disappointed, man. They were one win away from getting into the playoff, and instead they lost to Tulane, and Tulane got into the playoff again instead of North Texas. And North Texas might be just feeling, I guess you could argue they'll be playing with a chip on their shoulder because they want to prove we should have been there instead of Tulane. But what does beating San Diego State prove? I mean, that's the problem. Like, they don't get to play a good team here. You know what I mean? So how excited do they really get, for playing against a Mountain West team? Probably not that excited. So they don't really have that opportunity to prove that they belong, because winning this game won't prove anything. They're expected to win. So I think you're going to get a disappointed North Texas team here, man. Kind of like what I said with South Florida. Like, they were just on the verge. It's North Texas even more so than South Florida. They were just on the verge of making the playoff. Now they're not playoffs. Now they're not going to be there. They're already not there. And they watched Tulane get wiped out. Are they really going to be excited to play in the New Mexico Bowl against a Mountain West team? I just don't really think so. And North Texas, now the one thing you could say about them is, even though they're in bowls constantly, they have lost 8 bowls in a row. North Texas has not won a bowl since 2013. So maybe that will be a motivator to try to get a bowl win for the program. But it's also a trend that North Texas just doesn't play well in bowl games. And you want to talk about North Texas's coaching here. Like, maybe their coaching is not good in bowl games. Well, their coaching is going to be at a disadvantage here because their coach bailed. Eric Morris, he's gone, and he's going to be going to I forget, where's he going again? You guys can remind me where he's going after this. I forget. He took a new job at some bigger school. I forget where. But he's gone, so Morris is not going to be there for North Texas. So I think they're at a disadvantage there too, because they have some interim coach that isn't as used to coaching. Morris coached the CUSA championship too, so I believe. But I think Morris is now out of this game, so that's going to throw a wrench into what North Texas is going to want to do here. So San Diego State has more continuity here, so I like that. They're playing a little bit closer to, I guess they're playing, because North Texas is kind of in eastern Texas, in Denton. So I think San Diego State is a little bit closer to this venue. That's how big Texas is. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But San Diego State playing in New Mexico, they're more familiar with the venue because I believe this is New Mexico's stadium. San Diego State plays there every other year because they're in the same conference as New Mexico. So this is right in San Diego State's territory. So I think the venue helps San Diego State. And I think San Diego State will be more excited because even though they were in a bowl a couple years ago, and they've won a bowl more recently than North Texas has, which I think they won a bowl in maybe 2022, something like that. San Diego State, they completely plummeted off as a program the last 2 years. I think they were horrible and didn't even make the bowl season at all. So I think the fact that they're back, I think they're going to be excited about it, man, to some extent, to represent the program. Although there are opt-outs on both sides. And now with North Texas, the line moved all over the place here because it was 6.5, maybe close to 7. Then it dropped all the way down to like 3 because Mestamaker, their best player, their quarterback, looked like he wasn't going to play, but now he's saying he is going to play, which is weird. I mean, I know he missed like a team meeting the other day, which was for this bowl game. He wasn't there because he was accepting some award. I don't know what that means, but I don't know, man. I don't know if you're going to get a full effort out of this North Texas team, out of Mestamaker here. We do have some other offensive players opting out for North Texas potentially here. I don't even know which of these guys are going to play and which guys are not going to play for North Texas here. Oh, yeah, Eric Morris is going to Oklahoma State, right? So he's not here for the bowl. It looks like he might be taking some of his players over there to Oklahoma State, so some of these guys might be gone for that reason. Neil Brown is going to be their head coach, but he's not here yet. So Svoboda, their special teams coach, is going to be the interim head coach, and he doesn't know how to run the offense, man. So the offense might take a hit here. Morris was the offensive play caller, so he's gone. It looks like they didn't really have an OC, because you'd think that the OC would have been the guy to fill the role if they had one. He would be the interim coach, but whatever. I don't know. This is all really, really weird for North Texas. I still think they're a very disappointed team. For San Diego State, they do have some opt-outs. They have a couple of transfer portal guys from the defense, but it's possible some of these guys play as well. So we don't really know who's playing and who isn't playing for San Diego State. It seems like one of their best cornerbacks might be not playing because he might enter the draft, the NFL draft, but we'll see. And they do have a few injuries, including their quarterback, Denegal. Denegal. He would be playing for San Diego State if he was healthy, but he's not. He had surgery. He's out. But San Diego State, they're all defense, man. They're not a passing offense, so I don't think their quarterback being out actually matters that much. So we will see. Former Central Michigan quarterback Emmanuel Jr. is going to make the start at quarterback, but again, I don't think that is going to be a huge deal because, again, San Diego State doesn't do much passing really either. Now, they did lose their defensive coordinator, which might be bad because San Diego State's all about their defense. And for some reason, their passing game coordinator is going to be the interim defensive coordinator. I don't know what a guy who's on the offensive side of the ball knows about defensive coordinating, but whatever, coordination. Maybe that's bad for San Diego State because they had a great defense this year, man. Really good defense, and you probably want the continuity of having your DC there, but I'm still going to go with it. I like it for San Diego State. I think you're fading a very disappointed team. The public's going to be all over this offense that looks like it's almost an unstoppable offense for North Texas. I'm just not sure how unstoppable they're going to be in this game. San Diego State really likes to ugly up the game and play shockingly low-scoring games, so it's like which one is going to win out. I've had my eye on it for a while, and we're going to go with San Diego State in that game for all those reasons, and hopefully they're more excited just to be back in the bowls at all, where at least North Texas played in a bowl last year, and they lost a close game to Texas State last year. Is that true? It's a town, but they're not playing. What? Really? It's got to be a company, man. It's got to be a sponsor because this game is in Albuquerque. All right, then we have the Gator Bowl, which is the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. I'm sorry, you have a tax company helping you out, helping to slay your taxes, man. They're probably like H&R Block, I'm guessing. They're the sponsor of the Gator Bowl recently. This is going to be a good weather game. It's going to be in Jacksonville. It is in Jacksonville. Number 19, Virginia against Missouri. I was going to call this the disappointment bowl, but really it's mostly a disappointment for Virginia. I mean, think about what Virginia just did, man. They just made the ACC championship game. They were favored against Duke, and all they had to do was win that game, and they would have been in the playoffs. They probably would have lost in the playoffs, but all they had to do was win that game to get to the playoff, man, and they would have been in probably instead of James Madison. And instead, they missed the playoffs because they lost to Duke. That's just brutal. Now they wind up in the Gator Bowl, which is actually kind of one of the better, there are always big conference teams in this bowl at least, but I just don't know that they're going to be that excited. Yeah, they get to play an SEC team, but I don't know, man. I think Missouri is going to be the less disappointed team here because Missouri, they knew they were out of it for a while. Missouri's played the way more difficult schedule. I've been talking about how Virginia has been overrated all year, and Missouri is favored in this game, and of course they're favored for a reason, which I talk about this. When you have an unranked team being favored against a ranked team, you usually want to look to that side, to the unranked team that's favored, because the public is going to think there's value going the other way and taking the dog. Now, the problem is Missouri was going to be a 7-point favorite here, but they have a bunch of opt-outs as well that don't want to play in this game, so they've dropped to about a 4-point favorite. Is there value there? I don't know. The way that Missouri plays, I'm not that interested in jumping on this game at all. I was actually, at first, I was thinking about Missouri here because Virginia's just such a disappointed team here, and I still lean to Missouri in this game, but I just don't think I can get there with it, man, with all the guys that seem like they're not playing and the style that Missouri plays. But Missouri's played the way more difficult schedule. They're in the SEC. They're a more physical team that runs the football. Virginia is not good. I don't think they're going to be good at playing a team of that style. So I don't like Virginia really in this game, in addition to them being super disappointed. Virginia has a bunch of guys that are not playing in this game, of course, including, I believe, their quarterback, Chandler Morris. He's out. Possibly this running back, Jamari Taylor. I don't know if he's their top running back or not, but a lot of these guys are out. Dakota Twitty, ridiculous name, is an injured tight end for Virginia, but I just think that his name is hilarious. Now, we got a lot of guys that are not going to be playing for Virginia Tech, my apologies. Now, for Missouri, I think you can kind of guess that quarterback Pribula wasn't going to play. He got injured during the season. I think he did come back, but he's not going to play in the game. But I think Missouri's going to have more continuity here because Zollers is going to play quarterback, and he played 3 games this season when Pribula was injured. So Zollers is going to be more experienced than I think whoever is playing quarterback for Virginia here. So at least there's some continuity with the fact that Zollers did start 3 games this year for Missouri. That's a decent thing for Missouri. Now, Missouri is losing 2 of their wide receivers, so that's not good. Although Missouri is mostly a rushing base offense, so I don't know how detrimental that will be to their offense, the fact that they're losing 2 wide receivers. They're going to be running the football a lot because that's what they do. I guess got to keep an eye on, there being potentially other opt-outs, although their coach, Drinkwitz, is saying there aren't going to be that many opt-outs. We'll see. Missouri, they're a good defense, too, and they're definitely the better defense here, but you're going to be laying points with the better defense here, and their defense is probably going to be mostly intact. It looks like Virginia is probably going to have a few more opt-outs on the defensive side than Missouri will, and I thought that Virginia's coach was out of here, too, but maybe I'm wrong about that because I don't see that listed here. I don't know why I thought that, but whatever. So overall in this game, yeah, my opinion is slightly towards Missouri, but the line has crashed from 7 to 3.5. 65% of tickets and only 51% of the cash. So the money looks like it is jumping in on the Virginia side, but I don't really love it. In the ESPN game, where if you're getting Virginia at plus 7.5, you probably have to just take the line value or whatever in the ESPN game. But at 3.5, I would probably start leaning towards laying it with Missouri. I think Missouri is better set up to get away with the win in this game, but we'll see. Total plummeted to 44, although I actually think Missouri is correlated to an under in this game because Missouri is the much better defense. The money is kind of coming in on the under here, so we'll see in that game. But a low-scoring game, laying points, I don't really love laying points in a low-scoring game either, so we will see. It could be a black woman's name. Yeah, that is true. It's a tourist town south of Albuquerque. All right, but I'm guessing that it's still a company though. But I'll look. Garrett, what's up, man? What's a good take? Virginia. Virginia's not that good. Yeah, that's correct. We got a win with them against Florida State on the show, so that was a fun one to get a win on. But Florida State also was way overrated at the time. Yeah, Virginia's not that good. All right, and now I'm going to look up Isleta real quick here. Yep, Isleta is a casino. I told you it was a company, man. It is a casino, a major attraction, casino and resort complex near Albuquerque. So that's what Isleta is. I told you, man. It's a sponsor. Yes, so it is. Yeah, it is sponsored by a casino. That is correct. Isleta is a casino. All right, and then the final game of the day in college is the Kinders Texas Bowl. Kinders? I have no idea what the fuck Kinders is. This is LSU and number 21 Houston, and this game is literally in Houston. It is at the Houston Texans Stadium at NRG. Now, one question you got to answer is, does Houston get excited to play in their own city? Now, yes, they're going to have fan support, obviously. Their fans will show up for the game for Houston. They could also maybe get excited because they get to play a big-name team like LSU, so maybe Houston will get excited about that. So my first instinct on this was kind of like, you got to think Houston probably will be excited for this because they don't really, I mean, they get into bowls most of the time, it seems, but a lot of times they don't get to play a better team like this, like LSU. So maybe they will be excited to play a name team like this. So that was kind of my thought originally. Of course, LSU had championship aspirations this year. Now they have none of that. So that is a concern, similar to what I said about Penn State and Clemson here. But the more I started thinking about this, the more I was thinking, like, maybe there are actually reasons to maybe actually lean towards LSU in this game. Now, Houston, we don't know how excited they're going to be to play in their own city, because a lot of times teams just don't get excited to play in their own city because it's just not a destination bowl, so they don't really see it as a reward. Houston, remember, they were trying to win the Big 12, and they got kind of close to doing it, and they fell just short, and maybe they had an opportunity later in the season to make the playoff even. So I think LSU knew they were playoffs. LSU knew they were eliminated from the playoffs earlier than Houston did. So that is something to keep in mind, that maybe Houston does actually have a disappointment factor here. Now, maybe the fact that they get to play in an NFL stadium maybe will pump them up. They will have a crowd there, but LSU is not that far away from Houston, man, and you know how LSU has a massive fan base. So LSU is probably going to travel all right for this game, even if the game is, a disappointment game for LSU. You got to think they'll have a decent crowd, at least in this game. So that's one thing that kind of has me thinking, you know what, maybe I kind of want to start leaning in the other direction here. Now, the money has kind of been coming in on LSU, although it's swinging back towards Houston a little bit. Houston came out as a 3-point favorite, and that's because LSU had a lot of guys that we knew weren't going to play in the game, because LSU is the better team here if their starters play, but of course they're not starting. Of course, the main news is that Nussmeier, the quarterback for LSU, has been there for years, their star quarterback, who didn't have a good year, by the way. He's not playing, but maybe that's not that much of a downgrade for LSU because he wasn't good this year. So he's not playing for LSU. That was one of the big components of this, why Houston was a favorite, because, of course, if these teams were both fielding their starters, LSU would have to be the favorite. So maybe there was a little bit of line value on LSU, although the line is now down to 1. It was actually a pick 'em a little while ago. We see 51% of tickets, 55% of the cash on LSU. It's a low total, down from 42.5 to 42. And now I think the better way to play this is actually probably the under in this game. You get the total above 41. You're looking at two offenses that are not great and two defenses that both teams are much better on the defensive side than the offensive side. So I think the under might be the way to look at this game, although you do have to worry about, especially on the LSU side, a lot of their best defensive players are not playing in this game. 74% of the tickets on the over, 90% of the cash on the over. But here's the thing, man. Even though LSU does have all these opt-outs here, including both Weeks brothers, of course, West Weeks, or is it West Week? Which Weeks? I forget. One of the Weeks is plowing Lane Kiffin's daughter. I forget which, but of course, whichever one it is probably wants to just get the hell out of here before Lane Kiffin shows up, because he's going to be coaching LSU. So we have all these opt-outs from LSU, a lot on the defensive side. Of course, Nussmeier is out, like I said. A lot of opt-outs for LSU in this game. A disappointed team, obviously. Now, the thing about the quarterback situation for LSU, though, is Van Buren has already played 3 games. He's already made 3 starts, so he's not coming in cold. So I think there's a little bit of continuity there. So that's not that bad for LSU, the fact that their quarterback in this game has played a little bit. Now, they did lose their starting center. That's not great. Houston definitely has the fewer opt-outs here. They're the more intact team for sure. So it seems like they do want to show up for this game. So motivation does seem like it's on the side of Houston here. So I do worry, but here's the thing, man. With LSU having all backups basically playing, I think the backups will be motivated. Like I said earlier in the show, when you have your backups playing, they do tend to want to show up and play because they get the opportunity to play in a big national TV game. It's like an isolated game, so I think they might actually show up in this game. The backups might. So I'm not totally convinced that LSU is just a dead team in this game. It's a very difficult game to handicap. A lot of these bowls are, which is why I'm very, very I'm trying to be very selective with these bowl games. It is way easier to handicap the playoff games, man, because you know that you're going to get, you know what you're going to get. You know you're going to get the effort out of both teams. So, although in a way, if you can actually identify which team is, because this is why I do the situational handicapping during like the regular season, because it makes it easier to identify this team might not show up in this particular spot. Whereas in the bowls, it's harder to identify that, and the lines adjust way more in the bowls to it. So that's the whole thing about the bowls, man. Now, of course, we also know LSU is dealing with an interim coach as well because they fired Brian Kelly in the middle of the season. So whoever was coaching for them on an interim basis is continuing to coach through this game. Lane Kiffin is not going to be there until next year. So that's what's going on in all the bowls. I mean, I might slightly lean towards LSU in this game as it stands right now. It's going to be one where you probably have to do some market watching on it. Difficult handicap in this one. By the way, it looks like we might wind up getting a 7 on the San Diego State play here, so we will see. I don't know what else there is here to say. Kinders is the meat seasoning. Is who black? You listen to his West Weeks and Wit Weeks. Do you think those guys are black? Wit and West? No, they're southern. They're down south white homeboys. LSU will have the upper hand. I don't know. Well, Kiffin's not going to. Right. So the players might want to play knowing that Lane Kiffin is coming in. The players, want to show some. Yeah, that probably is a factor. Players might want to look good for the incoming coach because he's going to be watching the game. He might. I don't know if he's going to be there just in attendance. I have no idea, but. Betting my leans. I mean, my strongest ones are the actual plays I'm giving out, though, and that's what I've made my bones doing. So we'll see. That's it for the bowls today, man. I believe a lot of bowls today, though. A lot to get through. It's the biggest bowl day, though. The next bowl we have is an isolated afternoon game on Monday, which is really going to be a banger, by the way, in the J-Lab Birmingham. Oh, J-Lab. I don't think we want to talk about that. All right, let's get to the NFL. These games they're definitely interesting, and I do have a play that I was not going to have until Christmas happened, and now I think it's worthy of a play in the night game. You probably know what it is then. The afternoon game here is the Saturday afternoon game, Houston at the Chargers. But it's not a late game, so, I talk about how these teams that are further east, a lot of times they struggle in these late night games out west, but that's not what this is. It's 4:30. Now, this game, the market read looks like it's indicating on the Chargers, but I'm not so sure. Chargers have flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1.5-point favorite here. 60% of tickets, 53% of the cash on the Texans. So it looks like the Texans are a public dog here, which is bizarre to me because if you just go based on what happened last week, I'm surprised the public is on Houston because what did Houston do last week? They almost lost to the Raiders. That was a bad performance from them, and I think they were looking ahead, man, because these games against the Chargers and the Colts just mattered more. They almost got caught, and I thought people would see that and not want Houston this week because they looked so bad against the Raiders, whereas the Chargers, they looked way better in beating Dallas on the road, and they beat me. I thought it was a good spot to fade the Chargers in what I thought was pretty much a sandwich spot, and they still annihilated Dallas, so they looked like the way better team. So my first instinct on this was Houston would be the way to look in this game, and I'm surprised the public is not looking towards the Chargers here. The public just really doesn't like the Chargers at all. It seems like they just hate the way the Chargers run a slow offense and whatever. They don't like it at all. But the Chargers put up a lot of points last week against, I know it's Dallas. Their defense is miserable. So, yes, the Chargers are having to go from facing one of the worst defenses in the league to facing one of the absolute best. So this is a huge step up in class for the Chargers offense to have to face Houston here. So, yeah, there is that. But they did play Kansas City the week before that. That's a good defense. They played Denver earlier in the year already and won. Good defense for Houston as well. For Denver, excuse me. So, I don't know. There are a lot of things to consider in this game. Now, this game is a wild card game for the most part, I think, because, yeah, the Chargers, they do face Denver next week. You could argue that's a little bit of a look ahead. But they're probably not going to catch Denver. They would have to win this game and then beat Denver, and they would have the tiebreaker against Denver if they did that. And in addition to that, they need Denver to lose this week, which I don't forget who Denver's playing. Or no, Denver already won this week, right? Yeah, they already beat Kansas City. So actually, maybe the Chargers can't win the division anymore now that Denver won. Let me think about that, because the worst Denver could be now is 13-4. Oh, no, the Chargers still could win. Yeah, the Chargers can still win the division. They have to win this game and beat Denver next week on the road, and then they would actually win the division by way of the tiebreaker. So the Chargers can still win the division here. Is Herbert 100% healed? No, I don't believe he is. He doesn't look right. There's something wrong with his hand or something there. Garrett, this is a good point. I was going to get to that. The Texans crushed the Chargers the last time, but I'll get to it in a minute. But not only that, but that may be a motivating factor for the Chargers here. So now, yes, the Chargers will be motivated, although Houston will be motivated too. Now, the Chargers are unlikely to win the division here because they would have to win basically a coin flip game here, and then they have to win as a dog on the road at Denver. So unlikely, but possible that they could still win the division. But they still got to battle Houston for wild card seeding here as well, though. Playing for seeding doesn't matter that much in the NFL. Like, that's not really that much of a motivator to play for seeding. But if you look at what's going on in the NFL standings here, there is something going on here where I think the Colts are actually not eliminated yet. I don't know. There's something weird going on here because it seems like both these teams are almost guaranteed to be in the playoffs. The Chargers are already guaranteed to be in. Houston, it seems like there's some way that Houston could still fall out of the playoffs. It seems like Indianapolis could still somehow overtake Houston because they play each other next week. So I guess if Houston loses this game, if Indianapolis somehow beats Jacksonville this week, and then Indianapolis beats Houston next week, they would still make the playoffs. But it's not really that much of a concern. I think effectively Houston is pretty much in. So it's kind of a battle for seeding, which I don't think really matters as much. And, you know, for the Chargers, by the way, when teams are they don't control their own destiny, like the Chargers don't control their own destiny to win the division, really, because, no, my mistake, they do. Actually, never mind, because I was going to say when teams don't control their own destiny, I actually think they're a better play-on team because it's like some of that is out of their hands, you know what I mean? Like, all they can do is win, but they can't control everything. But with the Chargers, I think they can control everything because they need to win both games. So I don't like teams that control their own destiny because it's like the pressure is all on them. Like, you have to win to control your own destiny. Now, we got to put all this in a blender here, and Garrett is making a good point. This is playoff revenge for the Chargers, which is what we were alluding to that earlier in the show as well. Chargers played at Houston during the playoffs last year, and that was a win for me on the show with Houston. Houston embarrassed them, man. It was a bad game for the Chargers. Houston's defense took control of that game and made Justin Herbert look awful. He had one of his worst games of his career in that game. Now, that does mean that Houston's defense knows how to stop Justin Herbert. They know what to do, but it also means that LA might be more motivated in this game, the Chargers, because playoff revenge is a thing, man. You have to think the Chargers have this game circled for that reason because the Houston are the team that eliminated them from the playoffs last year. Now, that's not the only thing on their mind, though. What's on teams' minds right now is we got to get into the playoffs, whatever. And, yeah, the Chargers have already made the playoffs. So this game, I really, really struggle to figure this game out. The market read right now is saying the Chargers. I guess I have to go with the market read on this one just because there are so many factors that I can't figure the game out, but I don't love it. My initial instinct was Houston just based on what we saw the teams do last week, but sometimes that instinct is wrong when you got to kind of dive in and see what else is going on with the dynamics. Total's really low at 39.5, and an under still might make sense here because you're looking at a really good Texans defense. You're looking at a Chargers defense that they're good at limiting their opponents from scoring, and part of that is because the Chargers stay on the field for long possessions, so they rest their defense, even though it isn't exactly great. I wouldn't really disagree with an under, though, even though the total is extremely low. It's low for a reason. 73% of tickets, 54% of the cash on the over, so yes. under might actually even be the better way to look at this game. It could be real ugly in this one. Yeah, Texans 99% chance to make the playoffs, right? Because Indy would have to win out, and the Texans would have to lose out, I believe, for that to happen. Okay. And then the other game is the game we're going to have the other play on, which is, you know what this is going to be, man. And we did have the opportunity to grab it at 4.5, but I chose to kind of wait for more information, but fine. We're going to take the points of the Baltimore Ravens. You probably can get 3.5 on this. This game isn't going to be until tonight. The public is going to come in on the Packers. We're going to fade it. 69% of the tickets on the Packers, only 54% of the cash on the Packers. There's like one really, really major reason why I'm going to do this. Maybe a couple, really, but I like how this sets up for the Ravens, and a lot of it has to do with the Christmas games. The money's also coming in on the under for what it's worth, a low total of 38.5, but some of that has to do with the fact that we have backup quarterbacks playing on both sides of the ball here in this game, on both teams. So the total crashed from 46.5 down to 38.5. Maybe it was an overreaction, but I like taking underdogs when it's expected to be a low-scoring game, you know. 69% of tickets on the over, 79% of the cash on the under. Again, you know me, I like grabbing the points when it's going to be expected to be a low-scoring game. The points are worth more. We're on a key number of 3 here. I think you can wait, and you might get 3.5. I think at worst you're going to get 3 on this. So I would wait. You might be able to get the 7. If I get them, I'll update the description and whatever. I'm going to put out the Instagram videos as well. We'll see. But San Diego State, I think you'll be able to get 7. And Baltimore, I think you might be able to get 3.5 on this. But I would still do it at 3. Now, the line was at 4.5 very briefly on the Packers yesterday because it looked like Jordan Love might come back and play in this game. But here's the thing. The Packers, they don't want to do anything stupid here. At this point, the Packers, they're getting ready for the playoffs because guess what happened on Christmas? The Detroit Lions lost on Christmas, and they handed the Packers a Christmas gift by way of handing the Packers a playoff berth. So the Packers, they're in the playoffs now because Detroit lost. The Packers they've clinched. They're essentially locked into a wild card essentially now, because I don't think they can catch the Bears now. Unless I think maybe if the Packers win out and the Bears lose out, the Packers could win the division, but they're not focusing on that at this point, man. They're focusing on making the playoffs, and they've already made the playoffs. They're focusing on being healthy for the playoffs. So they're not playing Jordan Love in this game. He got a concussion in the last game, and I think this could be a hangover spot for the Packers because you saw what happened in the last game at Chicago. The Packers should have won the game, and then they'd be in position to probably win the division if they'd beaten the Bears because they would have swept the Bears on the season. The Packers were winning by 10 with like 3 or 4 minutes to go in the game, and it took a horrific offensive effort out of the Packers late in the game to not be able to get any first downs there. They gave up an onside kick to the Bears. The Bears tied the game, and then the Packers with a backup center, and I think the Packers were actually on a third-string quarterback in the game because I think Malik Willis got hurt as well for the Packers. I think he hurt his arm or something. The Packers fumbled in overtime in the Bears' territory, and they were at least going to put points on the board, and they lost the game. I think that's brutal, man. A huge divisional game like that for the Packers. That's what they're coming off of. Now, yes, the Ravens did a similar thing. The Ravens blew a double-digit lead in the final 4 minutes against the Patriots. I know, but I don't think that game was of a magnitude that the Packers-Bears game was. So you could argue both teams are in a hangover spot here, but I think for the Packers, it's worse. But again, the fact that the Packers clinched a playoff spot, a lot of times teams will have a weak effort after they know they're in the playoffs. They kind of just take their foot off the gas, whereas the Ravens, they not only do they have to win, but they got to have help, man, and they're an underdog. So I like this. I think you're going to get an effort out of the Ravens here. They know they didn't look good in prime time. I know they played a team with a good record, the Patriots, but the Ravens blew that game, and everybody's just making fun of them. Why was Derrick Henry not playing in the final 12 minutes? That is definitely a question you need to ask. What the hell were they doing? The last time we saw him, he scored the touchdown and put them ahead 11, and then he never saw the field again. He wasn't hurt. Makes no sense. And, of course, both quarterbacks got hurt last week. So the Ravens were without Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson was over on the sidelines laughing it up. Something's not right there with Lamar Jackson, man. I think he hasn't been fully healthy this year, but he seems like he's not fully focused and fully invested on winning games here either. So I actually think that the Ravens' backup quarterback situation is much, much preferable to the Packers. Now, I know it's going to be Malik Willis in this game for the Packers. I know he's got a little bit of experience. He was on... Where was he before this year? He was on the Titans, I think, prior to this year. He's played some games before, for sure. He played a couple games for the Packers last year. He's got experience. He played last week a bit, but he also injured his arm, I'm pretty sure. So it's kind of weird that he's going to be playing in this game with an injured arm, potentially. Seems odd to me. But I also think the continuity is just way better for the Ravens with Huntley playing. Huntley played, in the backup role last week. He didn't get hurt. Lamar Jackson got hurt, but Huntley was fine. He's healthy. And you know how much he's played for the Ravens. He's played several games for the Ravens already this season because Jackson was hurt, so Huntley's more experienced this year. Huntley has also been on the Ravens for a while, and I think they got him back this season because he's very familiar with the Ravens' offensive schemes because he's been on their team for so many recent years. He's very familiar with their offense. They don't have to change their offense because he is a dual threat quarterback, similar to Lamar Jackson. So I like it a lot better. There's a lot more continuity for the Ravens here. And again, you're getting points with a team that needs to win the game. And when a team needs to win, a lot of times I won't want to play them because you're not getting line value playing that team. But in this case, they're an underdog. And when you're getting an underdog and you know you're going to get effort out of them, I like that. So we're going to get an effort out of the Ravens, and the Ravens are in a situation where they also don't control their own destiny. They got to win, and they need help. They need the Steelers to lose to the Browns tomorrow for the Ravens-Steelers matchup in the final week to mean anything for the Ravens. So, and it's possible that happens, by the way, which I'm going to mention that in a second, actually, because I think if you like the Browns, you got to play them now before this game happens. And I'll talk about that in a second just as an aside before I get out of here. Now, for the Ravens, what the hell was I going to do? Man, this is a long show. Fuck, man. I thought I was going to get this done way faster. Starting an hour earlier. Jesus. Anyway, Ravens, yes, I think they're going to be motivated. The Packers, all they have to play for right now is seeding and, the outside chance of winning the division. Nah. The Ravens have way more of a motivational factor here. They look bad on primetime. People are making fun of them. You're going to get an effort out of them, whereas the effort for the Packers might be questionable, where the fact that they're not starting Love here would have to lead you to believe that the Packers are trying to keep Love healthy for the playoffs now that they know that they're in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with the Ravens here, plus the points. And that is the final play here. Wait and see if you get the 3.5 on this one. You're getting the 7. Is it juiced? What's the juice on it? Love is not playing. No. They decided that last night, I believe. Lamar is not playing, which might actually be a good thing because he looks like he is not 100% and a head case right now and not fully into it. So I'd probably rather have Huntley out there, to be honest. Colts would have to win the strength of victory tiebreaker. Yeah, because they would pull into a tie head-to-head with Houston as well. But the Colts are not eliminated yet, so yeah, they would win that tiebreaker is what the standings are saying here because the Colts are not eliminated yet. So they're going to win that tiebreaker if they do win those two games. Yes, 7. We'll see if it's juiced or not. Yeah, it seemed like that game was rigged. I don't know what the fuck that was, but the public was all over the Patriots in that game, so I don't know what was going on in that game. The books probably wanted Baltimore in that game. Bears and Niners. Yeah, I like the Niners in that game. Henry over. What are we talking about? What do you mean? With a backup running back? What are we talking about here? Baltimore uses like 3 different running backs in their scheme. Oh, with a backup quarterback. Yeah, so Baltimore's going to be running the ball. Well, I don't know. Baltimore doesn't change their offense that much with Huntley out there. Like, he's definitely not as talented as Lamar Jackson, but he's not bad. Like, they're going to do mostly the same things. But yeah, Henry, I think after Henry got never saw the field for almost the entire fourth quarter last week. I think he is going to play more. Although I don't love playing star players over their totals necessarily, but maybe worth a look in this one. Now, the last thing I was going to mention is if you like the Browns, which I do, you got to play them now. I think even if you do agree with Baltimore here, the result of this game is going to really impact what the Steelers do tomorrow. 81% of tickets, 71% of the cash on the Steelers right now. They're down from 4.5 to 3 here. I like the Browns in this game, and you're getting a really low total as well. Now, the Steelers, the thing is, they're going to have nothing to play for. If the Ravens lose, then the Steelers clinch the division, and they're in, and they have nothing to play for against the Browns. So you'll see this line is going to tank. So I think if you like the Browns enough to make the play, you got to do it now because you're not going to get a better number on this once this game happens. The only way you're going to even get like the same number on this is if the Ravens win, which maybe they will because I'm saying you should play the Ravens here. But if the Ravens do lose, this Steelers line is going to crash to like 1 probably because the Steelers will just start resting players because they'll have locked up the division. They won't need this game. And for the Browns, I think it's going to be basically their Super Bowl. The Browns, they do well against the Steelers. I think the Browns have won 4 of their last 5 games in Cleveland against the Steelers as well. So they've been good at home against the Steelers recently, and they're going to treat it like their Super Bowl, their final home game. They get to host the Steelers. I like the Browns actually either way. Like if the Steelers are still fighting to win the division, the Steelers are going to have like a potential look ahead to that game against the Ravens because that's the only game that's going to matter to the Steelers. So I still like the Browns. Regardless of the outcome of the Ravens-Packers game, I like the Browns in this game. It's just a matter of getting the best number. And you know that if the Ravens lose, this number is going to tank and you won't get the best number. So, yeah, if you like the Browns, it's actually better for the Ravens to win and set up a showdown in the final week. And the NFL kind of wants that, by the way. If you believe in rigging, maybe the NFL will rig this so that the Ravens win tonight, and then it does set up the Ravens-Steelers showdown in the final week. But yes, I do like the Browns generally in that game. My problem is the Browns just had a huge effort and almost beat the Bills last week, so I do worry about that a little bit. So I don't think I'm adding that one to my card, but if you're going to, I think you have to play it before tonight's Baltimore game. That's what I'll say about that. Colts have played they've had wins against a slightly better slate of teams, I guess, than Houston. Yeah, Houston is the better team, though. Especially right now with the Colts having Phillip Rivers in there. Okay, but but you're not looking at what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if the Colts beat Jacksonville and Houston loses to the Chargers, Indy gets into the playoffs. That's the deal. Because right now the standings are saying that Indy is not eliminated, and obviously that means they would win the tiebreaker based on that. So whoever currently has the tiebreaker doesn't matter. If Indy gets those 2 wins, they will win that tiebreaker. That's what I'm saying. All right, that's going to do it for today. Once again, the plays: San Jose in hockey, money line. San Diego State, find the 7 out there in whatever that bowl is. The New Mexico Bowl. Baltimore Ravens +3 or 3.5. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Learn to tote on Instagram. Learn to tote on Twitter. Like, subscribe. Give me good comments here. Listen on audio. Give me good reviews on audio. Spotify, Apple. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. Patreon.com/learn-to-tote. You can get bonus Uke stuff there. And the Loser Cast, go check that out as well. I got to still add that to my links, to my link tree. That's going to do it. I'll have to be back tonight for the usual NFL show, or at least we have fewer games to talk about because 5 games will already have been played. So we're only going to have, 11 games to talk about. But possible I wind up with anywhere between 2 and 4 more NFL plays, depending on how I vibe with some of these games here, because there are a few that I have my eye on, but we'll see what I want. Didn't think that I was going to give out a play on the games tonight, but I actually like the Ravens enough to do it now that the Packers have clinched. So we're playing it on the fly here, baby. That's going to do it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Pinsey. Oh, I thought you were saying that they wouldn't have the tiebreaker, but obviously they will if they win those 2 games. That's the whole point. Let's go. Yes. Hell yeah, Charles. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for hanging out. Jeffrey, Pinsy, Garrett. I appreciate it, everybody. Who else was in here today? Do we have anybody else this morning? Charles. I think it was just Stacks. Yes. I knew there was somebody else in the mix there. Samuel as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. The last tiebreaker is a coin flip. I don't know if they've ever actually had to resort to that. It's ridiculous, but yes. That's going to do it. I'll be back tonight. Peace. Happy holidays. I'm getting mad, man. I'm starting to get frustrated because yesterday I was not happy with the results. I'm not happy with the way my bowl entries are going right now. But let's get it done, man. Let's do it. Peace.